He likes to be told what to do.
You always have to be the strong one. You always have to be so much stronger than me. He's my wife's son.
You're teaming up with a murderer.
You ate his wife's anus.
Without it, I'm...
You know, when white folks get mad, y'all motherfuckers go berserk, but I gotta turn the other cheek.
I got rhythm, I got music, I got my man who...
Well, after a second season that went on an extraordinary nosedive in terms of quality, and a little animated spin-off that, while fun, was ultimately irrelevant to the overall franchise, it was time for the next season of the show to broadcast. But before we talk about that, shout out to today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Manta Sleep. Trying to get the perfect good night's sleep has been something that I've struggled with for a lot of the time in my life. There's been many a time when I've just kept awake, not even going to bed until 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. So if you're someone who needs a little bit of help to fight off that insomnia, check out Manta Sleep. They have a wider range of different sleep masks and accessories to help you get the perfect good night's sleep. Whether you're after something basic to block out light, or something to help soothe your tired eyes. Feel free to check them out through the link here or the one in the description, and feel free to use my exclusive code to get 10% off. Season 3 promised to be an improvement for the show, promising to be bigger, more fleshed out, showing us fights, gore and shock moments we've never seen before. And joining us this time for the main cast was Jensen Ackles as Soulja Boy, a actor and character I think everyone was looking forward to. And I will admit, Season 3 starts out a lot more solid than Season 2. So was this the season that would bring back the quality of Season 1 and iron out the problems that had slowly started to creep its way into it? The short answer is no. The long answer is it might be just as bad as Season 2. The very, very, very long answer is Episode 1 opens with us watching the Dawn of the Seven movie, where Stormfront has been written as the main villain after the events of Season 2, as Homelander blankly stares on. At the premiere, we see Homelander struggling to maintain his composure, a reference to the Snyder Cut movement. We get a hilariously awkward moment of Starlight stealing the spotlight and Huey bumping into a pissed off Homelander. And Stan Edgar and Newman talking about the success of her department's efforts in bringing down bad superheroes. During the premiere, Huey notices someone trying to get Newman's attention, but is interrupted when A-Train poses with him for pictures. We then have a montage of Homelander repeating the same rehearsed message about how he made a mistake with Stormfront. Social commentary on the often scripted and disingenuous apologies that celebrities and political figures give after making mistakes. I will say I'm a bit confused about what the show is trying to say about the production of Dawn of the Seven and its parallels with the real life movement of the Snyder Cut being released. In real life, Zack managed to shoot most of his film before the tragic death of his daughter, forcing him to take a step back, and in the process Warner Bros., afraid of the growing backlash based on the tone of the previous Snyder DC films, then hired Joss Whedon to rewrite and reshoot parts of the film, releasing a jumbled mess and leading to a campaign of #ReleaseTheSnyderCut so people can experience the original product as Zack intended. Now, in the show, I thought they were trying to make parallels to this in Season 2, with Adam Burke, the director, being undermined by Homelander and Vought when making his movie, with Homelander even getting Joss Whedon to rewrite parts of the movie.
You enjoying this?
Yeah. This new Joss rewrite really sings, huh?
However, in this opening scene, it's established that Adam couldn't actually shoot a watchable movie and they had to get Tony Gilroy to reshoot everything, which is really strange when you're trying to make parallels with the real life problems of the Snyder Cut. Turning the character that's meant to represent Snyder into a really shit director who was incapable of shooting a film and required another individual to finish it comes across as extremely disrespectful. Just to be clear, I'm not a massive Zack Snyder fan. I don't think a lot of his movies are great, and I think his version of Justice League is bad. Maybe it's just as bad as the theatrical release. But to downplay the loss he suffered and the meddling Warner Bros had on the project and turning it into Zack Snyder couldn't hack it comes across as extremely tone deaf. I get it, it's a popular superhero media thing that happened a year before this season released and people would be able to make connections to it. But you can still parallel things without basically making fun of a guy who had to fight for the movie he was told he was allowed to make, who suffered a tremendous personal loss. Moving on from that, Butcher talks to Huey to report they're ready to go after a new target, Termite, and after a tense moment of Butcher asking Huey to grow a pair and make decisions without Newman, Huey allows him to proceed as long as it's surveillance only. We see Frenchie and Kimiko infiltrate the party, and while Frenchie keeps tabs on the target, Kimiko comes across someone playing the piano and imagines herself being able to sing to the music, a longing to have her voice back. Termite goes into the bedroom with his boyfriend, and after shrinking down to go into his dick, Termite sneezes due to his cocaine use, causing him to lose focus and regrow to his normal size, killing his boyfriend in the process. Frenchie comes in and Termite tries to kill him. Despite the efforts of both Frenchie and Kimiko, they are unable to defeat him, but before he can kill Frenchie, Butcher appears, snatching him up in a cocaine bag and getting him drugged up to the point of overdosing. After some contemplation, Butcher refuses to kill him, telling Frenchie to have the Bureau of Superhero Affairs pick him up. Two issues here. For a start, why bother to go this small at all to kill Frenchie? He's able to regrow inside his boyfriend and he didn't suffer from any damage from growing against someone's body or the bones that would have stabbed into him, so clearly he has super strength and endurance of the other supes. He could probably just punch Frenchie here and he'd be dead, if not extremely injured. Turning small is just a convenient way to make him take longer to attack, allowing Kimiko to come in and help. Secondly, where does Butcher come from? In the scene where Termite is trying to jump into Frenchie's mouth, we can clearly see the door behind him and we see no one coming in or out. On top of that, Termite himself doesn't react to his footsteps or presence in any way. Yet Butcher is all of a sudden just stood right next to him and manages to capture him at the last second. Again, conveniently saving Frenchie's life. After capturing Termite, we see Huey on his morning routine, and after 9 episodes, this show finally remembers that Huey has a dad that he should probably be talking to. So congrats on remembering to include him after randomly ignoring him for a whole season. Would have been nice to see them actually talk about the entire situation of season 2 and see Hugh's reaction to the person Huey has become, but you can't have everything, I guess. Huey goes to his job and talks to Newman about the surveillance on Termite, and I do like this scene a lot. I think it does a great job of showing the audience the relationship between the two of these, not only as a boss and employee, but as friends, helping to make Huey's discovery of Newman even more painful to watch due to the friendship that gets destroyed from it. However, I do want to point out something that isn't necessarily a criticism of this story, but more of a missed opportunity. I think it actually would have been quite interesting to see all the different cases that the Bureau have worked on in regards to bad soups, especially as this department has been operating for over a year now. But instead we only get to see one case, and then after Termite we don't get to see any other jobs the boys are doing, because obviously the plotline involving Soulja Boy kicks off. Would have been interesting to see, especially as Butcher hasn't been killing any of them, making me intrigued as to how the Bureau managed to take down these bad soups, which was an aspect I enjoyed about Translucent's capture and death in season 1. Huey spots the random man from the premiere, Tony, who wants to talk to Newman, although he keeps calling her Nadia, with Huey having him removed and being confused about the situation. Butcher goes to see Mallory and Ryan, with Butcher and Ryan playing together and commenting on how much they miss Becca. It's also established that Ryan has nightmares about Homelander, being very scared and fearful of him. Mallory encourages Butcher to spend more time with Ryan, telling him he should get out of the boys while he can, but Butcher refuses, thinking he'll just fuck up the relationship the more time he spends around Ryan. She refutes this, pointing out how he stopped killing and drinking to try and be a better influence around Ryan, and she hopes he reconsiders. As Homelander is preparing to go to the Cameron Coleman show, the Deep greets him and tries to catch up, with Homelander furious that the Deep was given a slot to be interviewed before he was, with Ashley and Deep quickly becoming fearful. After the interview, we move on to MM celebrating his daughter's birthday. Happy to be spending time with his daughter, but struggling with his divorce and Monique finding a new partner, Todd. In Vought Tower, Stan and Singer discuss V24, a new strain of Compound V that gives people powers for 24 hours and then it wears off. As they're talking business, Singer talks about how unstable having soups in the military are. Stan agrees with him, saying that turning these soups into public celebrity superheroes has ruined them, wanting to do away with the superhero market and turning Vought purely into a pharmaceutical and defense business. Despite his interest in soldiers having temporary powers to make operations easier, he points out that Compound V is a topic avoided in Congress due to Vought using Stormfront, a Nazi, to push it forward. Newman tells Huey that because of the way Termite was brought in, the department is going to have to let him go, and in return Vought is throwing 3 other soups under the bus for the department to have, angering Huey. Newman reminds him of the good they've managed to do, and it's because they did everything legally and by making compromises, with Huey accepting the decision. When Huey explains this to Butcher, Butcher gets angry, pointing out that the only supes they're taking down are small timers, because Vought has too much power for them to take them on in a legal way. Huey apologises to Butcher for leaving the boys, and encourages him to take some time to grieve Becca instead of throwing himself into work, with Butcher becoming fixated on the plane crash footage. In Vought Tower, Stan has a meeting with Homelander and Starlight, where he reveals that because Starlight has helped give the company a good image after all the problems they've had over the years, he wants to make Starlight the co-captain of the Seven. Homelander is naturally flabbergasted, and after Starlight says no, Stan orders him out of the room. He tells Starlight that having power isn't about abilities the supes have, but the ability to make changes and influence organizations, something she could have as co-leader of the Seven. On a game show called American Hero, Starlight is helping to choose who will join the Seven, with one of the contestants being an old relationship of hers, Supersonic. Huey walks in on them and they talk about their past, with Huey becoming insecure about their past relationship. They talk about Annie becoming co-captain, with Annie wanting to use the powers for good, while Huey demands she not do it and getting jealous of Supersonic, causing a falling out between the two of them. This scene is really frustrating for two reasons. I mentioned in the season 2 video that the show seemed to have a weird disdain for sex, with the idea seemingly being that people that have sex are somehow immoral people. Well, here they established that Annie used to have sex with Supersonic, but they go out of their way to downplay it and talk about how it wasn't that great, almost trying to justify to the audience that Annie is still a good person despite having sex. Again, I think it's just a really weird thing for the show to try and preach. The second thing, and this is a problem that's going to grow throughout this season, is how Huey has randomly started to become massively insecure about his position in the relationship. Season 1 establishes that Huey isn't trying to be better at Annie for anything, actively encouraging her to not hold back on his behalf because he has no problem with her being the person in charge. And presumably at some point in the relationship they would have talked about the fact that he wasn't her first sexual partner, but apparently not only is this the first time hearing that she wasn't a virgin before him, but now he's actively annoyed that she had sex with other people before him, turning one of the most empathetic and understanding people in the show into a insecure, jealous arsehole for no reason. And it only gets worse from this point on. Starlight and Homelander have a photo shoot to announce the news, with him becoming frustrated. He bumps into A-Train, chastising him for how many calories he consumes, despite not being able to use his super speed anymore. He then threatens A-Train after he insults him. We see that Maeve has been watching this, and then she gets in contact with Butcher. In Homelander's apartment, we see Homelander rant to a badly disfigured Stormfront about the various stresses of his life, and despite her offer to help relieve some stress by wanking him off, it quickly turns sour when she starts talking about her Nazi rhetoric, a topic he is uncomfortable with. Now again, I don't mind the concept of this scene, I just feel like it's something that should have come up before this point. It's been a year since the end of season 2. You'd think at this point they would have had this argument several times already, and she would have understood that he's never going to be the thing she wants him to be. So alongside Annie, Maeve has also been providing intel, surprised that Butcher wasn't able to detain Termite. She hands Butcher a file on Soulja Boy, revealing that his publicly announced death wasn't the truth and that he was actually killed by some sort of weapon. A weapon that could be used to kill Homelander. Maeve states they should try and talk to the other members of Payback, Soulja Boy's team, to find out what happened to him. She also gives some vials of Temp V, with Butcher questioning why he would ever want to be a supe as Maeve leaves, telling him to not fuck things up. Again, a decent scene, but there's some issues I have. The first part is the Soulja Boy thing just kinda comes out of nowhere. Now obviously Maeve is a mole and she might have had time to find out this information, but there's no setup for this plot point. Maeve just walks in and says that Soulja Boy might have gotten killed by a weapon that can kill Homelander. I feel they should have at least had a scene of her discovering the file or something like that, just so it's set up. The second part is, how does Maeve get these vials? Surely after everything that's happened over the past year, especially over the fact that Annie is dating someone that goes against their best interests, wouldn't Vought have upgraded their security to help avoid leaks of more of their products? And yet Maeve just somehow managed to walk into the lab and take all of these vials of V24 and no one cared. Butcher goes home and right when he's about to throw away the V24, Homelander appears, which, ignoring the fact he could have just thrown the V away in his office and didn't need to wait until he got home to do so, how convenient that Homelander shows up right when he's about to do it here. It's almost like the script fairy appeared to make sure that Butcher doesn't throw them away long enough to set up events that would change his mind. Homelander asks where Ryan is, with Butcher refusing to tell him and telling Homelander to just kill him already. Homelander refuses, viewing it as putting down a wounded dog as Butcher isn't his ruthless self, and then goes on a rant about Vought, lambasting them for using politics and marketing to hold people like him and Butcher back. with both of them agreeing they would love to just put all the legal bullshit aside and fight each other to the death. Homelander then disappears, and we see MM, despite enjoying spending time with his daughter, still struggling to let go of his job and the pain that Vought has caused him. As Huey and Newman leave work, we see Tony chasing after her and follows him. He overhears their conversation, where Tony talks about them growing up in Red River and that she should speak out about it. Tony then realizes that she is trying to kill him and they fight, and after a short struggle she explodes him piece by piece, with Huey realizing that she is the head exploder from last year. Newman calls in a cleanup team as Huey sits behind the dumpster, terrified over what just happened and who Newman is. Once again, another fine scene, but it's just the same problems over and over and over again. There's been a 1-year time skip. Newman has been a public figure since before the end of season 2, and at the end of season 2 she now has a department with an address. And you're really trying to tell me that it's taken this guy over a year to get this address and talk to Newman about this? It's just awfully convenient that this exact scene happens right when Butcher is starting to go off the rails again, starts tracking down a potential soup killing weapon and has access to Compound V, setting up the rest of the plot. On to the next episode, and after a trailer for a dramatization of the Deep's plotline from season 2, we see Butcher have a nightmare over whether or not to take the V-24. Waking up, he has a video call with Ryan, where he ends up snapping at him before apologising. After a tense scene of Homelander getting frustrated that Stormfront won't wish him a happy birthday, we see Huey and Annie investigate Red River, with documents that they've gotten from somewhere. I wouldn't be that confused if Huey was the one that got the documents, given his government access and the fact that Vought probably wouldn't just give Annie these documents. But based on the fact that Annie is the one reading them and Huey seems surprised and reactive to the information, it would seem like he hasn't seen these documents before, even though logically he should have. It's got a confusing setup. Not the biggest problem, but still an issue. In Vought Studios, Annie and Supersonic have a friendly chat, before Homelander arrives and causes things to get tense. We then get a scene I really like, where Butcher arrives at MM's apartment and talks to him about a possible weapon that killed Soulja Boy, encouraging him to get back in the game as it would give him closure over Soulja Boy, while MM doesn't want to neglect his daughter over his obsessions the way that his father did to him. He does give Butcher some information before he leaves, and we see that despite his desires, he is still obsessed over Soulja Boy. Frenchie and Kimiko arrive at Vaughtland, and after another joke I like,
Que c'est hamburger with a donut for a bun? Surely there is no gut here.
get another good scene, where Kimiko, who has never really had a childhood, wishes to go on one of the roller coasters, and later solemnly looks at a pair of siblings sharing cotton candy, something she will never be able to experience. They arrive at a theatre where they get a slideshow of Soulja Boy's life, a vocal performance from Crimson Countess, and they manage to get a private meeting with her. They try and interrogate her, but she manages to break free when they get distracted, accidentally killing a worker when attempting to fight them, with Kimiko becoming upset that she ruined the day for the siblings she saw before. We see Huey struggling to open a jar, leading to him smashing it open in frustration and injuring himself. He phones Annie, only to become more annoyed when Supersonic answers it, choosing to investigate Red River despite promising to wait for her. In the rehearsal, Homelander attempts to insert some demeaning material into the act, but she refuses his request and Stan backs her up, frustrating Homelander even more. In Ashley's office, we see A-Train, who now cannot really use his super speed anymore and feels useless. So he's trying to pitch a rebranding of himself to encourage more support from African American communities. And we get probably one of the best jokes in the series.
Is that a video game about the slave trade?
Some powerful stuff.
Huey infiltrates Red River, discovering that it's an orphanage for superpowered children, and we see that Teddy Stillwell is alive. So not only did Teddy, a literal baby, manage to react faster than a C4 explosion and teleport miles away from his house at the last convenient second, but he's also somehow managed to age to the point where he looks around 4 years old, despite the fact that the gap between the season 1 finale and this episode is only a year and a few months. Teddy also is really obsessed with Huey for some reason, constantly teleporting next to him and then pointing to the TV, which causes Huey's cover to get blown. Thank God this child that looks 3 times his actual age was here then, wasn't it? So the teacher realizes that Huey isn't actually from Vought, but Huey convinces them that he's here because he and Annie want to adopt a child in secret, allowing him to get close enough to their computers to download their files and read them, showing that Newman was adopted by Stan Edgar. In Newman's house, we get to see Stan bonding with his granddaughter Zoe before talking to Newman, assuring her that so far no one has come forward regarding the death of Tony and that he will always look out for her. Butcher goes to a gun convention to talk to Gunpowder, Soulja Boy's sidekick. We then get a bit of social commentary on Red State gun culture and another funny joke.
Sorry, mate. There you go. Nice piece. Welcome. Next!
Butcher tries to interrogate Gunpowder, threatening to reveal possible sexual abuse between him and Soulja Boy if he doesn't comply, but Gunpowder doesn't care and insists that it never happened. As Butcher is going to leave the convention, he is ambushed by Gunpowder, who uses his skills to severely outplay Butcher. Butcher shoots some of the cars, distracting Gunpowder and allowing him to escape. So first off, considering how skilled Gunpowder is, I struggle to understand how Butcher was even able to get out of the car, never mind last this long. Surely Gunpowder would have ricocheted a bullet into him, or even just gun him down normally when he's on the run. Secondly, why would some alarms going off distract him long enough for Butcher to escape? He has a clear view on where Butcher is. He knows perfectly well that the car alarms going off on his left aren't Butcher, so he should just be remaining on target. But instead he decides to just randomly look around at the car alarms going off, allowing a injured Butcher to escape to safety. Homelander attempts to half-heartedly convince a suicidal girl not to jump off a building, only to become distraught when a news broadcast comes on saying that Stormfront has killed herself. Homelander begins to go off the rails, comparing himself to Jesus, and is unable to comprehend why she killed herself, while insignificant people get to live. Despite the girl not wanting to jump anymore, Homelander forces her to kill herself anyways. In MM's apartment, we see he has grown obsessive over his old case files and research, getting distracted to the point he burns food and smashes the fire alarm in frustration, scaring Janine. In the bureau, Huey keeps up appearances with Newman and Annie meets up with them, accidentally causing an argument over Huey's abilities to do things for himself and making Newman leave them to it. Huey shows Annie the evidence from Red River and then goes on a tirade about how useless he is and how his life is a joke, because after last season made sure to establish that no one else respects him, this season has to make sure that he doesn't either. Still, at least the scene ends on a decent joke.
I may have signed us up to adopt a child.
Drops Janine over at Monique's house and has a talk with her, stressing how the recent Soulja Boy news has started to affect his behaviour and he doesn't know how to control his obsessions. Monique tells him he should just join Butcher and find out the truth regarding Soulja Boy, as it might allow him to move on, and she assures him that she will be there for him even if they're not together. Frenchie tries to cheer Kimiko up by offering to take her to a theme park, but she refuses, saying that she just wanted to experience being a child and that she hates that she stole that from the two children there as well, believing herself to be broken and her powers to be a curse. Butcher patches himself up, and after watching a short film Ryan made alongside Becca, he phones Huey, telling him he's sorry for how he's been behaving and he wants to keep things as they are, as it's been a positive influence on Ryan. Huey then tells him about how Newman is the head popper, she's Stan Edgar's adopted daughter, and all the good things they've done legally over the past years being a setup by Vought, and that now they're gonna have to do things Butcher's way again to get results. After a scene of Homelander grieving Stormfront, Butcher confronts Gunpowder again, with Gunpowder quickly gunning him down. He is then horrified when Butcher gets back up and snaps his guns apart, showing he's now infused with V24 and demanding to know what happened to Soulja Boy. Gunpowder isn't sure, but informs him that the CIA put him and the other members of Payback in Nicaragua for a covert mission for Mallory. Despite his compliance, Butcher refuses to let him live, killing the Soup in a fit of rage and struggling to control his powers. Another pretty solid scene that just has some issues. The first one, why did Butcher even pretend to be dead in the first place? We see that he's strong enough to snap metal in half and even take direct hits from Homelander, yet here some bullets are strong enough to push him back and ragdoll him. I want to say that this was Butcher just playing pretend, but not only does this not help him in any way, but he seems genuinely shocked when he sees that he's bulletproof, so not really sure how he was knocked down by the bullets. Secondly, I do think it's a shame they killed off Gunpowder so early, especially as Soulja Boy is right around the corner. I think it could have been an interesting bit of storytelling to see how things would play out for the only member of Payback that didn't try to kill Soulja Boy. Would he still stick by him, believing his beatings weren't that bad and helping him to assist hunting down his traitorous teammates? Or would he see how brutal he is and actually turn against him? Despite how much storytelling potential there is, they just kill him off anyways, so we'll never know. During the Vought event, A-Train unveils his new wardrobe, much to Ashley's annoyance, and he calls Homelander and Starlight to the stage, with Homelander once again commenting on his weight. After a heckler laughs about Stormfront dying, combined with Starlight railroading him into donating to her charity in an already straining mental state, Homelander goes off script, with the episode ending on him talking about how he's better than everyone else and he's tired of being controlled. On to the next episode, and we see Annie when she was a kid, forced to do a child beauty pageant by her mother, gripping her fist in pain throughout. In the present, everyone is trying to handle the aftermath of Homelander's speech, with Ashley revealing to him that lots of people related to his speech and his reputation has gone up in red states. She says that although his popularity in other sectors have gone down, his co-leadership with Starlight makes up for it. In the office, Butcher begins suffering from withdrawals, while MM starts sorting out his desk and bantering with Frenchie and Huey, a good improvement of their relationship since the first season, especially after what season 2 did to them. After roasting Huey, Butcher says that they've had to move Ryan and they need to talk to Mallory. With Huey skipping work likely to cause suspicion, he asks Kimiko to break his arm, which would give him time off without suspicion. Annie causes tension with Ashley and the marketing department, debating over who will join the Seven, while Frenchie meets up with Cherie, who is going on the run as she apparently fucked up a big deal for someone called Little Nina, a ruthless crime boss who will torture her to death. The boys meet up with Mallory, who is disappointed with the fact that MM is back on the team, with MM revealing that Soulja Boy killed members of his family when he was younger. Annie tries to warn Supersonic not to join the Seven, telling him about everything Homelander and the other members have done over the years. A-Train leaves his checkup and finds his brother waiting for him, and he reveals that anytime he uses his super speed, he might have a colossal heart attack that will kill him, with his brother asking him to come stay at his house for a little bit and spend time with his nephews. Ryan tries to talk to Kimiko, where she reveals that she hates her powers and how they can hurt her and others around her, with Ryan also hating his powers. Butcher interrogates Mallory over what happened in Nicaragua, threatening to release the names of her operatives when she denies it. She reveals she was part of Operation Charlie, where Reagan helped rebels fight against Russian allied governments, with Mallory smuggling cocaine out of Nicaragua to sell and get more funding, with Mallory instructed to sell the cocaine in more minority-focused areas in the US. Now, that line is fine and all. There's a lot of historical racial bias in the US, so this is definitely a thing I could see the government doing. But the thing that annoys me about this line is that MM doesn't really seem to care that much. After it's said, he just kind of sits there and then it's never had any relevance afterwards. Just like how Butcher ruined his life and he didn't care at the start of season 2, here he also just doesn't really care about this revelation either. Mallory continues, explaining that Vought had gotten a contract with the US military to help fight against communists, and that payback would be assigned to her operation to help her sort out a test run if they can work successfully in the modern military operations. And despite her refusal to work with them, Stan has orders from her superiors. Mallory overheard Noir and Stan discussing something that the rest of Payback, except for Gunpowder, were planning. Their base comes under attack, and she begins detailing exactly what happened from her perspective, although the story is interrupted when Butcher begins to suffer more side effects from the withdrawal. Homelander comes to Starlight talking about the possible new members of the Seven, with him suggesting they bring the Deep back onto the team. After understandably getting pissed off, her and Homelander have a private word, and when he doesn't seem to be backing down, she tries to bring up the plane crash blackmail that she has. Instead of backing down, Homelander instead encourages her to release it, saying that he won't be bossed around anymore, and that if he can't be loved by everyone, he's happy to be feared by them instead. After a comical scene of Deep having sex with his wife while dirty talking an octopus, Butcher continues to suffer from withdrawals, and Annie warns Huey about Homelander's seeming mental breakdown. Huey begs Annie to stay as co-captain, hoping she can distract them long enough for them to find the weapon that killed Soulja Boy, insisting they need to do it Butcher's way and how tired he is of things not working out for them due to the legal methods. At his brother's house, A-Train is roasted for his new suit, and Nathan encourages him to not bother with finding a cause if he can't run and should instead pack it in and do something else, talking about how happy he is at a kid's running trainer than he ever was working for Vought as a coach. He then tells him about Blue Hawk, a soup that has been going around the neighborhood and killing black suspects who might not have done anything wrong, telling him to use his influence to draw attention to the situation. With the V finally wearing off, Butcher and Ryan have a talk, where Ryan realizes that something is wrong with Butcher. Mallory continues her story, how Payback ended up causing Russian special forces to find them, and the chaos the fighting caused when Payback didn't know which forces they were supposed to be fighting, with Swatto getting himself killed and Grace being knocked out during the fight. As she woke up, Crimson Countess told her that the Russians had some sort of weapon that had killed Soulja Boy, with them taking his body away. She states that due to the Cold War at the time, she was unable to keep track of the body, with Soulja Boy being somewhere in Russian territory, and she has no idea where the body is or where the weapon is. Now, Butcher goes off on her for hiding this apparent weapon from him, while Mallory tries to justify it by saying that Butcher would be out of control with a weapon like that. But surely having a Homelander killing super weapon would be a logical thing to have just in general. It's not like Butcher needs to be the one in charge of it. She could have created contingencies for when it's allowed to be used so they don't just genocide any innocent soups that have nothing to do with any illegal activities. But instead, Mallory has spent the past 4 decades deciding that this weapon wasn't worth looking into, while the past 2 seasons she's been complaining about how powerless they are against them and Vought. Yeah, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense at all. Butcher says Becca might still be alive and Ryan wouldn't be living the life he does if she had just told him, while Mallory insists that Butcher never really cared about that and was just looking for an excuse to let his anger out onto the world. As he goes to leave, he says some hateful words towards Ryan to get him away from him, severely damaging their relationship. Frenchie is kidnapped by Nina's men and she informs him that Cherie actually stole from her, not failed a mission, and that she'll reward Frenchie if he tells her where Cherie is. He refuses, and then threatens her with the CIA to let him go. In Vought Tower, Homelander hosts a small dinner for the Deep, one that is designed to torture him as all the food is sea life, including his octopus friend Timothy, and as he has to eat all of it, Homelander goes on about how he feels liberated and can do anything he wants. Kimiko and Frenchie are both in the office, with her wanting to not work for Butcher anymore and asking Frenchie to leave with her. After Frenchie tells Butcher that he was kidnapped by little Nina, Butcher says this is good, as they can use her connections in order to get into Russia and begin to track down what happened to Soulja Boy. Wow, you know, it's a good thing that Cherie fucked things up with Nina right at this time so the boys can use Nina to further their goals, otherwise the rest of the plot might not have happened. Supersonic talks to Starlight and insists that he's not going to leave the show, as she stayed with him when he had a drug problem, and so he wants to help her now. Huey tries to support Butcher and why he did what he did with Ryan, but Butcher just ends up throwing up on him. On American Hero, Supersonic is chosen to join the Seven, but Homelander announces that the Deep will be returning to fill the second empty spot, and then decides to tell everyone that he and Starlight are in a relationship, with Annie forced to go along with it and gripping her hand in anger and fear. On to the next episode, and we see MM flashing back to the night where his grandfather was killed. After cleaning up his mess, Butcher tells Huey about the temp V and what happened with gunpowder, threatening him to not tell the other boys. And then we get this scene.
I am sick and tired of the lies peddled by the mainstream media.
From this point on, Homelander starts to lose most of his identity and just become another XP of Trump. And by XP of Trump, he just says the most obvious phrases associated with the man so people get the reference. It's actually such a massive shame about what they did with Homelander's character, but I'm sure their political commentary will be as top-notch as ever to make up for it. Stan asks Newman to use the Bureau to reprimand Homelander for his recent actions, trying to discipline him and assure Newman that she and her daughter will be safe. Butcher and Frenchie meet up with Nina, paying her back what Cherie took, but she demands more if they want any information regarding what happened with Soulja Boy. Annie and Huey discuss the episode of American Hero, with Annie saying she's doing whatever it takes, and Huey telling her to let him save her for once. Homelander walks in on them and begins to antagonize them, only stopping when Annie threatens his approval ratings. A-Train tries to bring up the problems that Blue Hawk is causing, only for Ashley to dismiss him, and we get a parody of the Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad. The boys end up on a private plane to Russia, although Frenchie is skeptical of what bargain Butcher had to make for Nina to give them these resources. Annie visits Maeve, with Maeve revealing she's been the one giving the boys information and training to fight Homelander when they have the apparent weapon. Annie wants to find another way to help them, but she is dismissed, with Maeve saying she's fine dying trying to take Homelander down. We then cut to the boys in Russia, and I will say I like this small world building touch, showing that while soups might be revered in the US where their target audience is, in Russia they are feared and seen as monsters, with any of their merch seen as propaganda and contraband. Huey sees an advertisement promoting the Homelander Starlight relationship, becoming annoyed when he's depicted as a crying baby over the breakup. It turns out to get the information they need, Kimiko will need to assassinate a Russian oligarch that has gotten on Nina's bad side. and despite protests from herself and Frenchie, they ultimately agree to do what Butcher says. Annie talks to Supersonic and asks him for help if they need to take on Homelander, with him agreeing as it's the right thing to do. In a meeting, A-Train tries to talk about the Blue Hawk issue, and Deep, with the help of Cassandra, points out that that could damage Homelander's standing with his fanbase, causing Homelander to dismiss the issue. Homelander is then informed by Ashley about the press conference Newman is going to hold against him, with him demanding to know what is going on. A-Train and Deep get into a fight about what happened in the conference room, with Homelander once again favouring Deep over him. Supersonic helps A-Train up, and after he expresses frustration at the two of them, Supersonic begins to tell him about the plan Annie is forming. MM demands to know why Butcher is being so cold-hearted recently, with him stating the reason why MM is on the team is because he's good at looking after people and keeping the group together, a trait that means Butcher can keep being the man he is without worrying about the group falling apart. It's a nice little scene, especially as it shows how manipulative Butcher is, shifting off from answering the actual question and getting MM to think he's being open with him. Frenchie drops off Kimiko, and after a funny little moment of her struggling in the more feminine clothing, she infiltrates the bedroom and she kills the oligarch and his bodyguards, with her once again feeling sorry for the horrific scene she's forced the other women to see. At her conference, instead of talking about Homelander's fines and punishments, she begins to thank Homelander as a whistleblower who has revealed crimes committed by Vought, publicly denouncing Stan, with Homelander threatening the others now that Stan won't be there to help protect them. Kimiko gives Butcher the evidence of the death, and then tells Frenchie she's tired of the killing, causing death, and being treated like shit by people like Butcher. Frenchie agrees, but people like Huey and MM need them to help stop the bad people, offering to take her to Marseille, which cheers her up. Homelander arrives in Newman's house, showing her a file that Stan had on her in case he needed to throw her under the bus, giving her some Compound V and praising her for standing with the soups over people like Stan, with Newman later injecting Zoe with the V. Butcher injects himself with more V, and when Huey walks in he asks to have some as well, tired of having to be saved by Annie and the other boys, but Butcher refuses, not wanting him to suffer from it. Homelander confronts Stan over him leaving the company and soon to be arrested, and after the two exchange insults at each other, Stan reminds him that now that Vought Industries is under Homelander's control, every fuck up will be on his shoulders and Stan won't be there to help him. The boys infiltrate the Russian military compound Nina told them about. And would you like to hear some of MM's amazing dialogue written for him throughout this season?
Fresh ain't shooting us with AK-47s on full auto, motherfucker. Red Dawn, motherfucker. Rocky 4, motherfucker.
It's like this throughout the whole season, by the way. I just found this one to be egregious because he says it 3 times in the space of about a minute. We get it. He's an angry black man. You don't need him to keep saying motherfucker for us to get it. They enter the lab, and instead of doing their fucking job so they can get out there as quickly as possible and not get killed by the Russian military, Frenchie, Kimiko and MM decide to stare at a hamster in a cage, aggravating it and causing an alarm to be set off when it starts to break the glass panels. During their gunfight with the Russians, Frenchie sees that Jamie the hamster has escaped his cage and it kills one of the Russians. He then makes absolutely no attempts to warn anyone about the fact they're stood in the same room as a hamster that wishes to kill them all and is extremely dangerous. They make Frenchie an idiot is what I'm saying. During the fight, the boys are pinned down and running out of ammo, forcing Butcher to reveal he has powers to take them down, much to the shock of the boys. We then see a guard about to shoot MM, with Huey teleporting to kill him, revealing he has also injected himself with V. There's a few problems with this. For a start, it seems that the injection of V24, at least for the first time, is extremely painful and unstable, with Butcher suffering from extreme pain and nausea during his first use of it throughout the 24-hour period, as well as struggling to control his powers. Meanwhile, Huey not only managed to sneak off with Butcher's syringe bag, but then injected himself with it and hasn't been suffering any pain or side effects since doing so, allowing this to remain a secret until right this moment. Secondly, why would you have a guard magically teleport in from the direction Butcher just came from and where Huey is currently looking at? Not only should this guard not be in this section of the room, but Huey should have warned MM long before the guard got this close to him. Thirdly, the guard has a gun that has the ability to shoot bullets, and yet despite the fact all of his colleagues are dead and he's severely outgunned, he decides to walk his way up behind MM and just stand there instead of pulling the trigger, allowing Huey plenty of time to activate his powers and save MM's life. As Huey begins to enjoy the power he has, Butcher and MM get into an argument over using Temp V, and all of the boys are disappointed in Huey deciding to use it for himself. As they collect documents, Butcher opens a big container in the room, revealing Soulja Boy to be alive. As he gets out, a mysterious energy bursts out of his chest, hitting Kimiko when she tries to save Frenchie from it. Soulja Boy begins to walk away, and Butcher doesn't bother to stop him. I thought the whole point of this was to find answers regarding Soulja Boy. Why the hell wouldn't he try and stop him from leaving so he can get answers firsthand? Butcher has shown throughout the past few seasons that he's not really that fussed about Kimiko living or dying. She's just useful to him. So I find it very odd that he goes out of his way to make sure that she gets the medical treatment she needs instead of going after Soulja Boy, the main route of their investigation, and as we see later, someone who can help them take on Homelander. Frenchie discovers Kimiko isn't healing, and as he and MM try and stabilize her, Huey is just in the front seat, laughing and enjoying himself as one of his friends is dying in the back of a van. I want you to keep this in mind for later. MM tells Butcher that he's broken the team up too far and he isn't going to hold it together for him anymore. Attending an event together, Homelander takes Annie onto the roof of a building, revealing the dead body of Supersonic. He tells her that A-Train told him everything, and that she will do everything he asked for her because otherwise he will kill Huey and anyone else that she loves, abandoning her on the rooftop of Supersonic's body. The 5th episode now, and we see MM watching the experiments the Russians did on Soulja Boy, with some of their experiments giving him new powers. MM and Butcher argue about his use of Compound V, with Butcher arguing that it levels the playing field, while MM argues that they shouldn't be using these same powers that they fight against. Butcher also starts to hallucinate Huey as his little brother Lenny. As Ashley becomes the new CEO of Vought, Homelander has a meeting with some of the leadership, only to quickly become agitated and upset when asked a business question he has no answer to. Overall, it's a fine scene, but I think it should have just waited a little bit longer. They're introducing themselves to him, and then she just randomly blurts out this question for no reason whatsoever, just to cause the drama to happen sooner.
Thought perhaps we'd start by going around the room and giving you all a chance to introduce yourselves.
Bill Marsh.
Pat Willis, sir.
With the changes around here, our EBITDA margins will drop a tiny bit. How do you want to handle that on the earnings call?
I think it would have felt more natural if everyone introduced themselves first, and then she asked a completely normal question that trips him up, instead of just ambushing him during what is basically a meet and greet. Deep is made the new head of the crime analysis department, much to the despair of everyone working in it. The boys arrive back in the US, with MM and Frenchie rushing Kimiko to the hospital, while Butcher and Huey plan their next moves. Huey helps to comfort Annie after Supersonic's death, which has been framed as a drug overdose. Huey tells Annie that Moscow was a dead end, and after she notices his arm isn't broken anymore, he explains everything that happened, saying that usually he's a coward, but having the Compound V allowed him to be not scared. Yeah, because Huey just isn't capable of being brave without it. It's not like he single-handedly infiltrated a Vought black site, busted MM and Frenchie out, and then fought off several soldiers while they got Kimiko to safety. No, Huey's just a massive worthless pussy throughout this whole show, isn't he? You fucking clown writers. Soulja Boy has infiltrated an airport, intending to stow away aboard a plane. A bit convenient that this military black site had an airport so nearby he could arrive back in the US around the same time as the boys get back, but whatever. In the office, Butcher informs Maeve about Soulja Boy being alive and she gives him more Temp V. Under the pressure of everything, Butcher and Maeve break their sobriety, and they contemplate how dangerous Homelander is, as Ryan is too young to fight him and the plane video would make him burn everything down. Despite commenting on how effective it was in helping him take down gunpowder, Butcher insists that he hits the Temp V, as all Compound V does is enhance the type of person that you are, saying that everyone with it needs to go for the world to be a better place. We then get a sex scene that not only feels out of character for Butcher, but really doesn't seem to have any reason to exist besides some fan service, I guess. The only scenes these two have really had together have been short ones revolving around taking down Homelander and explaining the Soulja Boy plot. So it just kind of feels out of left field, especially considering the fact that Butcher despises everything to do with soups, which you'd think would include having sex with them, but apparently not. In hospital with Kimiko, Frenchie is visited by Nina, who informs him that because of the boys raiding the military base, she has lost contacts and resources because of it, and states that Frenchie will work to pay it off. Kimiko wakes up, and despite her pain, she is thrilled that she no longer has powers. Annie has a go at A-Train for getting Supersonic killed for people who don't like him, and in Ashley's office he has a surprise meeting with Blue Hawk. And after a bit of commentary on violence against African Americans, Blue Hawk agrees to issue an apology. After very quickly arriving in the US with no complications whatsoever, Soulja Boy is in the streets of New York, seeing how the world has changed in his absence when a Russian song comes on the radio, causing a mental trigger and for him to unleash his new beam power, leveling a building and killing several civilians. Goes to pick his daughter up, where he gets into an argument over Todd letting Janine watch Homelander media, although their argument is interrupted by news reports on Soulja Boy's breakdown, causing him to leave Janine at their house to go find him. How lucky that this news report just appears at the most convenient time for because if he only found out this news when he had Janine, he would have been stuck in an inconvenient situation and not be able to meet up with Butcher and Huey for the rest of the plot to happen. As Homelander freaks out about the news, Annie has a go at him for his refusal to do any real work in stopping this supposed terrorist, going to the crime analytics department and talking to Huey about the situation. Butcher and Huey arrive at the site, and after talking to one of his colleagues at the bureau, also arrives at the exact same time they do. Bit convenient, but whatever. After pointing out he can't take on Soulja Boy alone and offering to help, tells them that he thinks he will go find someone called the Legend. After Annie freaks out over deep firing most of the department due to them previously bad talking Homelander on social media, Blue Hawk arrives to give an apology speech to the black community residents. But after people begin to question him over his actions, he lashes out, hurting several members including Nathan. You would think, considering how paranoid they are about their image, that something would happen to Vought over this, but no, not really. The only consequence from this scene is that Nath is now paralysed and it fuels A-Train's revenge. But besides that, there's nothing else that comes from this, despite the fact that a soup just basically cripples a load of black people for no reason. Manages to use a favour he's owed to get the Legend to talk to them, a guy who was the soup manager at Vought before Stillwell replaced him. Which is weird that Huey doesn't know who he is, considering he was basically the guy in charge of people like Soulja Boy and getting all of their movies and comic books out. It's almost like they needed someone to be clueless about who he is so they can give exposition dumps to the audience, despite the fact that Huey was an established Vought nerd who should know who he is. It's also weird that seems to have a vendetta against everyone that was involved with his grandfather dying and the people who covered it up. And yet for some reason he's just pals with the guy who was in charge of doing all of that. After the Legend hesitates to tell the information and things become tense, calms things down and learns that Soulja Boy came here to pick up his supersuit and to find out the address of Crimson Countess. After Homelander does a interview brushing the whole event under the rug, he confronts Maeve about her working with Butcher, and she reveals that she always hated and pitied him, before she is knocked out by Noir. Butcher shows he has more Temp V available, with refusing to take it and Huey accepting it, saying that he's useless without it, because as we know, Huey's never been able to do anything in this series before he got his hands on the Temp V. Annie confronts Ashley over Maeve disappearing, and despite coming close, she is unable to get any answers from Ashley. A-Train is furious at his brother's condition and Blue Hawk lying about the situation. So, why doesn't he use some Temp V to heal his brother? Is that ever going to be explained? Oh no, never mind. His brother is just going to stay crippled so he can be used for drama in the future. You really didn't think about the implications of introducing Temp V to the world, did you, writers? Kimiko and Frenchie are watching a movie together when she imagines herself in a musical, before deciding to kiss him. As Frenchie goes to get coffee, he is abducted by Nina and her men. Gonna be honest, this whole musical thing just seems a bit forced, so Karen could have something to do other than make up random sign language for this whole episode, especially as this is never something she's had an interest in any of the other seasons, and the only bit of foreshadowing is a brief scene in the first episode. Yes, the boys can be wacky, but this is just pointless. As the Countess is doing a private sex show, the boys ambush her and tie her up, becoming confused when she seems aware that Soulja Boy is alive. How did they arrive before him anyways? It seems like he's had a huge head start, and as we see later, he has the strength and endurance to run long distances. So how the hell did they get here before him? Annie then arrives, as has called her for backup, and she has an argument with Huey. She's annoyed he didn't call her for something so important, while he wants her to stop saving him and wants to be the one to save her. As their Geiger counter goes off, a signal that Soulja Boy is nearby, notices he's been drugged, with Butcher saying he can't draw any more moral lines when it comes to taking down Homelander. How convenient that MM passes out from the drugs right when Soulja Boy is arriving on the scene, because if he arrived before MM was drugged, or later after the drugs passed through his system, MM and Annie might have messed up their plan to team up with Soulja Boy, and the last few episodes of the show can't happen, at least not without a few important people dying in the process. Butcher proposes a team up between him and Soulja Boy, and Soulja Boy then meets with Countess. And after the two talk about what she did and that she and the rest of the team always hated him, he uses his beam, destroying the trailer and killing her. It would have been nice to see him actually learn how to use this beam. We've only seen him use it when he blacks out, as he describes it, so I'm curious how he even knows he has this beam, never mind controls it. And how does a beam that can level buildings and disintegrate people not damage his suit? Annie and Huey come back to see MM drugged and Soulja Boy walking out, angering Annie. Huey stops her and tells her that Soulja Boy is the weapon they need. He knew about MM being drugged and he's doing whatever it takes to take down Vought, Homelander and Newman, leaving Annie when she refuses to abandon MM and join Soulja Boy. So yeah, despite the whole point of the previous season showing that Huey would never risk the lives of these people and be like Butcher, now he's someone who's just completely fine with MM being drugged for the sake of the mission. And on top of that, this bit of dialogue is just hilarious.
You're teaming up with a murderer.
Ignoring the fact that all of the boys have murdered people, because that's literally what their job entails. Besides Butcher, Annie is the only other good guy in the show that has probably had the most cold-blooded murder scene in the entire series. Huey, MM, Kimiko and Frenchie on screen have never done something as cold-blooded as murder a man to steal their car so they can drive to the place the owner of the car was happy to take them to anyways. So yeah, this whole speech is just Huey trying to justify his new personality, and Annie the murderer trying to explain why being so close to a murderer is a terrible thing to do. If they wanted to cause conflict between the two and justify why Annie would never join Soulja Boy, they really needed to do something else besides saying he's killed people. On to the next episode, and after the show does a parody of when the Out of Touch celeb started singing Imagine during the COVID pandemic, a parody that goes on for far too long by the way, we see Deep, Noir, Homelander and Ashley in the crime department, finding CCTV footage of Soulja Boy and struggling to understand how he's alive. One thing I've just thought about here is that surely plenty of people would have seen Soulja Boy and got him captured on CCTV, considering he would have had to walk out of New York in order to get to the trailer park, and you're telling me this camera is the only one that managed to capture him? Homelander talks to Noir to try and find out why he killed Crimson Countess. After he leaves, Noir goes into the elevator, takes out his tracking chip and runs. In a hotel, Huey notices some liquid coming out of his ear, and Butcher negotiates with Soulja Boy, offering to help him get revenge on his former teammates, and in exchange for them helping, kill Homelander afterwards, with Soulja Boy agreeing. Pretty good scene with a lot of fish out of water comedy to it.
Where's the chopsaki Oriental sauce?
They don't have that anymore?
Why the fuck not?
In the hospital, Kimiko thinks Frenchie has left her because of their kiss, only to be ambushed by one of Nina's men and kidnapped. Ignoring how he just magically appeared in the room without anyone hearing the door open or his footsteps, I don't exactly see how a guy dressed like a nightclub bouncer is going to drag an unconscious woman through the hospital without being stopped by security. MM and Annie talk about Soulja Boy going after payback, with MM readying himself and getting annoyed when Annie tells him he shouldn't be going in guns blazing, saying how black people have to turn the other cheek while white people get to do what they want. Remember when Butcher left them all to die for his revenge and the boys on the show framed him as morally wrong? Remember when Huey started to do reprehensible things trying to take down A-Train and the boys on the show framed him as morally wrong, and in fact Huey decided to take the high road and helped save the person that took his girlfriend from him? But yeah, you're right MM, literally no one but you has been called out for trying to get revenge. Hell, MM's revenge is even stupider than Butcher's and Huey's, because Butcher wants revenge against a callous narcissist who would happily murder anyone in his way even if they're just an inconvenience, while Huey wants to kill the guy who was a vital component in Homelander's plans and was basically his most reliable asset. MM wants revenge on someone who not only is willing to help them take on a threat they have no real means of fighting, but also isn't really that bad of a guy, as we'll talk about later.
Soulja Boy is gonna kill more people. I mean, fuck! Kimiko is in the hospital.
So again, first criticism, you're also a murderer. You don't get to criticize other people for that. Secondly, this murderer you dislike is actively working towards taking down the worst soup on the planet that just murdered your old boyfriend, essentially forced himself on you romantically for the cameras, and has been threatening to murder Huey, your mother, and millions of other people if you disobey him. So maybe you should focus on the bigger fish before trying to take down the little one. And thirdly, as you rightfully point out, Kimiko is in the hospital. If murdering people was Soulja Boy's base instinct, then he would have killed her. So maybe you should think about whether he's actually that much of a threat at the moment. Annie is called back to the tower and A-Train confronts Ashley over what happened, demanding justice for what happened to his brother, with Ashley pointing out that he never cared about the collateral damage he caused to other people, so why would she care about his brother over Vort's image, with A-Train finally starting to see the type of person he is. Deep and Cassandra inform Homelander about Noir running away, and believe that Soulja Boy is going after his old team, with the TNT twins being the closest members. Homelander tells him to check on the twins and phone him if Soulja Boy appears. He then begins having a breakdown in his room, with the darker side of himself chastising him for having doubts over his decisions and his desire to be loved by people. After watching one of his old films, and after a humorous scene of Soulja Boy reacting to the baby products and praising Bill Cosby,
holy shit, did he make some strong drinks.
Holy fucking shit.
He rants on about how things have changed and how he was forgotten by his country and team, wishing to have had kids with Countess. Huey asks him about what happened when he destroyed the building, and despite initially being standoffish, he says he blacks out, and he regrets that innocent people got hurt. Butcher arrives back and they prepare to go after the twins. Deep arrives at the twins' house, where they are apparently hosting Herogasm, a party where attending soups get to do things I'm not allowed to show you or I'll get demonetized. While preparing for an interview, Annie is confused when Homelander seems to have genuinely missed her, and then is shocked when Newman joins them. During the interview, Homelander once again freaks out over a mild question. After their interview, Annie and Newman have a talk, with her revealing she knows the boys know that she has powers, and that she's not going to hurt any of them. She points out that Annie is surrounded by psychos and Maeve is probably dead, offering to help her be protected and secure if she helps use her social media influence to help support Newman's policies and bills. Annie refuses, saying she's sick of everyone threatening her to be a bad person, and Newman leaves, but not before threatening her to keep their conversation a secret. Now, overall it's a fine scene, but you're having this super secret conversation to backstab Homelander in the middle of Vought Tower, not only where they might be under surveillance, but where Homelander is, the guy who can see through walls and hear things from miles away. In a warehouse, Nina has Kimiko, Cherie and Frenchie held hostage, where Nina explains all the scars Frenchie has, and that deep down he is just a dog that gets told what to do. She tells Frenchie he has to choose either Kimiko or Cherie to live, and when he refuses they try and kill Kimiko. She manages to use a lollipop stick to pick the lock on her cuffs. A lollipop stick that she not only didn't drop when she was knocked unconscious, but she has somehow cut down and trimmed this stick to go into the lock and unlock her cuffs, with this thin piece of wood not snapping when trying to turn against metal. She then uses this thin wooden stick to completely slice open the throat of a guard, who falls on top of her, and the other guard then chooses to unload his entire magazine into the back of this dead guard instead of shooting any exposed parts of Kimiko, or just rolling the body off to get a better shot. Conveniently, this means that when he does roll the body off, his gun is empty and Kimiko is able to fight against him. Kimiko fights the guard and Cherie manages to break free to stop Nina picking up the gun. The guard begins to beat Kimiko badly, but she manages to stab and kill him.
Nina's gone.
Why is Nina gone? Why didn't she just pick up the gun? Frenchie is tied down, Cherie is now knocked unconscious, and Kimiko is getting beaten to death. Why not take the gun and kill them instead of running away? Oh yeah, that's right, they need these people to live, so they just teleported her out of the scene. Annie asks about MM's OCD, and he explains that one night Soulja Boy was stopping a crime outside his house, and he woke up his granddad to go see it. Soulja Boy ended up throwing the car through their house, nearly killing MM and killing his granddad. MM feels responsible because he woke his granddad up, and since then he's had his OCD, feeling like if he doesn't do things a certain way, Soulja Boy would come back to kill him and his family, and he needs to kill Soulja Boy so he knows he and his family are safe. Arriving at the twins' house, MM and Starlight manage to get in, with MM explaining Herogasm to her when she sees what's happening. After commenting that some of the people are innocent sex workers, MM proceeds to get covered in fluids. I mean, Termite bumping into him, fair enough, Termite seems like a bit of a dick who would do that, but why is there just a guy coming onto a door? I mean, that's what would have happened if MM didn't open it. It would have just been a door that gets covered in cum. So it just seems a bit forced to distract MM and stop him from bumping into the deep A-Train or Huey. We see Butcher, Huey and Soulja Boy spying on the house, with it revealed that Soulja Boy and Stormfront, who went by Liberty at the time, were the founders of Herogasm. Huey asks to go in first, so he can find the twins quickly and not hurt anyone else. And after failing to convince people of Soulja Boy, Annie finds Deep doing stuff with an octopus, threatening to show people if he doesn't explain what's going on. Huey ends up running into A-Train, and now with his powers he decides to confront him, demanding an apology over what happened to Robin. Huey is surprised when A-Train actually apologizes, but chooses to try and fight him anyways, with A-Train not understanding how he can punch him. Annie arrives to break things up, telling Huey they need to evacuate the house not just because of Soulja Boy, but because Homelander is coming as well. Soulja Boy enters the house, with Huey teleporting Annie out of there to stop her from attacking him. Huey then goes on a long rant about wanting to save her, and I think I've already said everything about this topic as I can, but pay attention to this line in particular.
I thought the drugs had fucked you up, Huey, but this is you. This is all you.
We'll come back to that. MM runs into Soulja Boy, who isn't affected by any of the weapons MM uses. Soulja Boy is dismissive of MM and his dead family, with Butcher telling him where the twins are. You know, this would be a good time to explain that you don't actually care about Soulja Boy, and that maybe it's after Homelander is dead they could kill Soulja Boy as well. That might help to defuse the situation and get MM out of their way. Never mind. I guess Butcher's just an idiot. As Butcher stops MM, Soulja Boy finds the twins, who tell him that Noir was behind the group attacking him, with Soulja Boy realizing Vought must have approved Noir of doing it. At the same time, a Russian song comes on the radio, causing him to black out and fire his beams again, leveling the house, killing the twins and several other innocent people. How convenient that this song is playing. It's especially convenient that it starts playing right after he gets the information he needs. Annie blasts Huey when he tries to stop her from helping, and A-Train confronts Blue Hawk, dragging him across the ground until he's shredded to death, although A-Train suffers a heart attack and seemingly dies as well. Homelander arrives, crushing Termite under his boot as Butcher wakes up, checking on MM, and a confused Soulja Boy runs into him, with him again not realizing he blacked out. Homelander arrives and, annoyed that Butcher brought someone to help fight against him, decides to kill Butcher before taking on Soulja Boy. After some smack talk, the two fight each other, with Annie managing to get MM to help evacuate people and look after the wounded. Homelander manages to gain the upper hand, but is shocked when Butcher appears behind him, his Temp V strong enough to withstand his laser vision. Butcher distracts Homelander long enough for Soulja Boy to recover, with both of them then attacking him, and with the additional support from Huey, they pin him down and Soulja Boy begins to activate his beam, although Homelander manages to run away at the last second. So this is the fight scene that everyone loves, isn't it? What's your favourite part? Is it when Homelander somehow can't tell Butcher is different despite Ryan being able to? The part where he lasers him and then somehow can't hear his heartbeat or breathing still going? Him not using his super speed to dodge attacks and inflict lots of his own? How about when he doesn't instantly crush their throats when he has the chance? What about at the end when he's clearly not strong enough to overpower the three of them until he just can? It's a good job that Huey managed to find them right before Butcher was about to die, otherwise the rest of the show wouldn't have happened, would it? On top of that, some of the fighting is just complete ass. You'd think a show in its third season would get an action choreographer so their fights are more than just quick cuts and sound effects, but nope. Even here they edit their fight scenes like a show made 20 years ago. Overall, it's a good fight scene in theory, but it needed so much better execution. As the trio leave the house, they share a solemn look with MM and Annie, who are helping the injured. Frenchie patches Kimiko up. She says that it wasn't the V that made her a monster, she was always ruthless even without it, and he tells her that she's not a monster, and she tells him not to listen to the things Nina said. Homelander stares at his bruised face, seething with rage, and Annie gets MM to record her, where she explains what happened at Herogasm, that Soulja Boy is alive, how horrible Homelander and Vought are, and that she quits working for Vought. Second to last episode now, and we see Vought News going out of their way to discredit what Annie has said, with the Legend watching the news. Huey asks him about Soulja Boy, where Legend reveals that Soulja Boy didn't actually storm Normandy, just did a photo shoot 2 weeks after D-Day, and that he also participated in putting down several protests against the US government, whether it be due to civil rights issues or against the war in Vietnam, as well as possibly assassinating Kennedy, with everyone sweeping things under the rug to make Soulja Boy be depicted as the ideal American hero. This makes no sense whatsoever. Here, it's basically said that Soulja Boy is a coward who only really cares about publicity and is more than happy to do bad things against civilians but not actual military combatants. But this is contradictory to information provided by the rest of the show. Ben grew up wanting to prove himself to his dad his entire life, willing to be experimented on to become the ideal physical specimen and doing whatever it takes to make Soulja Boy the son his dad wanted. It makes no sense that he would be holding back when storming Normandy. In fact, Stan already confirmed to Homelander that Soulja Boy was fighting the Nazis, and he shows no hesitation when it comes to fighting in Nicaragua. In terms of other accusations, he views himself as a patriot, so I have no idea why he would assassinate Kennedy. He values his image, so it makes no sense for him to massacre college students in public, and he's stated to have suppressed civil rights protesters. But he also seemed to view Bill Cosby as an ideal individual that people should look up to, and we never see him mistreat anyone based on their race. So this big speech that's supposed to discredit him really doesn't make sense. Butcher arrives back from searching for Mindstorm and they decide to talk to Soulja Boy, who, after trying to have sex with some old cleaners, explains that Mindstorm was extremely paranoid and had several different locations scattered across the US, with it being a struggle to find which one he's staying at. The legend tells them that he's bipolar, with Huey thinking they can look at what pharmacies are near the cabins and try and find the prescriptions for him, which seems like it would take even longer to hunt him down doing that. There might be a few pharmacies around just one cabin that they'd have to go and search each and every time, so why not just go to the cabins? In the vault cells, Homelander visits Maeve. Despite trying to question her, Maeve is quick to spot he's wearing makeup to hide his bruised face. He tells her that Soulja Boy can burn the Compound V out of people, but Maeve doesn't care, wanting to know why she's still alive. He explains that he used to want a family with her, and so intends to harvest her eggs and have new children. Although she's shocked at this, Maeve isn't afraid because she got to see Homelander genuinely scared about what happened to him. Frenchie and Kimiko arrive at MM's apartment, intending to help him and Annie. Butcher's team prepare to find Mindstorm, and when asked why he keeps buying Soulja Boy lots of weed, Butcher tells him he thinks he has PTSD, and that the weed will help keep him calm. In an abandoned arcade, Noir begins to talk to his imaginary friends, who encourage him to not run away from Soulja Boy. Now, I don't really have much of a problem with this. It helps to explain to the audience the thoughts and feelings of a character that can't talk, but I wish this had been hinted at before. The only bit of foreshadowing for this was a few episodes ago. There was a small scene lasting only a few seconds that showed him sketching the Beaver character. I wish there had been more times throughout the series, or maybe even just this season, where he's looking at a blank space like he's having a conversation, or he'll pour a drink for someone when there isn't even anyone there, something like that. This just kind of comes out of left field and feels like a lazy way to give exposition to the audience. On the way to Mindstorm, Soulja Boy begins to hear voices, while Huey notices fluid leaking from Butcher's ear. Soulja Boy accidentally trips a tripwire, scattering smoke everywhere and knocking them down. As they're getting up, Mindstorm sneaks up on Butcher and looks him in the eyes, causing Butcher to be trapped inside his own head. And why is Mindstorm here? They're a few miles away from the cabin, and you're telling me that not only is he not in his cabin and out in the woods, but of all the time and places to be, he just so happens to be in this part of the woods when the tripwire goes off, allowing him to be in the perfect spot to eliminate one of the people attacking him.
Fucking freak. Slipped away.
How is it this out-of-shape, middle-aged man is able to outrun you? Someone with enhanced strength and endurance. Why not just run after him and run him down? Oh, right, they need Huey to get to him first, otherwise Butcher just stays trapped in his head forever. So they'll just teleport Mindstorm out of this scene to allow that to happen. Soulja Boy tells Huey that Butcher will stay in this nightmare until he dies of dehydration, and that only Mindstorm can snap him out. Huey asks to capture Mindstorm first to undo what's done to Butcher, but Soulja Boy refuses, saying that it's too risky and that Butcher would be happy to die for this, especially as Soulja Boy intends to keep his end of the deal and kill Homelander after. In his head, we see Butcher used to protect Lenny from his abusive dad, refusing to give up his brother's locations, and the show begins drawing parallels between his dad's violence and his own actions. Frenchie begins to look at the files they got from Russia, although he briefly falls asleep due to all the trauma, with both him and MM commenting on how messed up their lives are at the moment. After checking Kimiko's wounds, Annie and her have some whiskey, laughing over Kimiko having her first drink. Kimiko then asks Annie to get some Compound V for her, wanting her powers back. Alongside his growing paranoia, Soulja Boy is annoyed by how much Huey worries about Butcher, telling him to man up. When Huey says that he didn't storm Normandy, Soulja Boy slaps him, with tension rising between the two of them. Deep tries to make Cassandra have a threesome with an octopus, with her backing out and refusing to be with him anymore. Noir is forced to relive his memories, with Soulja Boy having deliberately got him shunned out of a movie, beating him up for protesting about it and threatening the rest of the group. As a child, Butcher started to fight the principal when when he was being written up, quickly calming down when Lenny arrives. His dad later gives him a beer for doing it, encouraging his violent tendencies. Soulja Boy and Huey come across members of the church that have broken down, with Soulja Boy quickly executing one of them, stating they're being mind controlled. Huey tries to insist he's just being paranoid from his PTSD and the weed, but is quickly attacked by the nun, with Soulja Boy killing her and then lecturing Huey about making hard choices. During a political rally, Homelander goes on an unhinged rant about Starlight, and after hallucinating that Soulja Boy has followed him to the rally, he abruptly leaves, having a small panic attack. He calms down by milking a cow and then drinking from it, being interrupted by Newman. Not sure how she snuck up on him considering his super hearing, but still, funny scene. Newman tells him to just admit Soulja Boy is out there and take control of the situation. Homelander threatens her, but she offers to work with him and help him if he does a favour for her, handing him a note. We see A-Train wake up in hospital, where Ashley tells him they managed to find him and save his life by giving him Blue Hawk's heart, meaning he will be able to use his super speed again once he heals up, and he needs to start shit-talking Starlight over social media, with a uncomfortable A-Train annoyed that they're making a movie on his life that ignores his brother as being his coach. Overall, it's a fine scene, but I think it's extremely contrived that A-Train is alive. First of all, he had a colossal heart attack that was so bad his heart stopped beating in the middle of bumfuck nowhere on a random road. So even if they get to him soon, it would be a miracle if they managed to revive him without some sort of brain damage from the lack of oxygen. On top of that, Blue Hawk's body suffered severe trauma and then was left to rot in the sun. So even if the heart was in good condition when A-Train stopped, it's just going to start decaying shortly afterwards, especially in the heat. So yeah, personally I just think A-Train should be dead at this point. Frenchie has a breakthrough, realizing it's not poison gas but in fact a nerve agent that was used to stop Soulja Boy. Gets alerted that Todd has taken Janine to a rally that Homelander was attending, causing him to leave the apartment. Kimiko and Frenchie dance, where she tells him that she's getting some Compound V, as her powers weren't the source of her problems, and in fact they allow her to protect the people that she loves, viewing the boys as family and wanting to look after them. Annie sneaks into the Vault Labs, somehow. She doesn't work for them anymore, so her access should be revoked, and based on how paranoid Homelander is, and with Maeve stealing from them before, surely there would be extra precautions and security put in place. But no, she can just walk into the labs and do whatever she wants and no one cares. She steals some V, and on the way out she sees the notes for the temp V, where she reads that someone's brain will suffer severe trauma after 3 to 5 doses. Noir has some more flashbacks, showing Stan telling him to eliminate Soulja Boy, and we see what happened between him and Payback, with the group managing to eliminate Soulja Boy, but at the cost of Noir becoming disfigured and brain damaged, turning him into the mute sociopath he is today. His friends tell him he knew Soulja Boy might return and he needs to face him. At Monique's house, and Monique have a go at Todd for taking Janine to Homelander's rally, with Todd refusing to believe the media around Soulja Boy's return and believing Homelander over Starlight. Punches him after he insults him as a father, although he feels ashamed after he sees Janine's reaction. As Annie is waiting for the elevator, Homelander arrives, saying he knew she was in the building from the second she stepped in. So he was tracking her this whole time, either using his X-ray vision and hearing or through the cameras, so that she went into the labs and took Compound V, and hasn't called security on her or stopped her by himself until right before she's about to leave. He doesn't even bother to question why she was here or what she took, he just doesn't care for some reason. Homelander demands she go on Vought News and recount what she said, but she refuses, wanting to stop Soulja Boy. Despite threatening her, she isn't scared of him, and she gets him to confess to killing Supersonic and threatening Huey before revealing she has been live streaming on her phone, forcing Homelander to back off. Soulja Boy and Huey arrive at the cabin and spot Mindstorm. Before Soulja Boy can kill him, Huey teleports him out, taking them to Butcher. Huey apologizes to Mindstorm and tells him he doesn't want anyone to die, asking him to wake Butcher up as he doesn't want to leave anyone behind, especially people he views as family. He offers to take Mindstorm wherever he wants if he helps save Butcher. Inside his head, Butcher sees when he left to join the army, believing Lenny would be okay without him, and his past self getting angry when Lenny asks him not to go. He then gets lectured by the memory of Lenny, telling him he knew that their dad would beat the shit out of him without Billy there, and that everyone that loves him ends up dying. Lecturing Butcher and turning Huey into another version of himself, before Lenny shoots himself. Butcher wakes up, and as Huey is about to take Mindstorm away, Soulja Boy arrives. Wow, it's been like, what, 2 minutes between Huey teleporting away and Butcher Butcher waking up, and Soulja Boy somehow managed to run 2 miles in that time, almost like he's a super soldier who would be able to do that. Yet somehow he couldn't reach Crimson Countess before them, and he couldn't immediately run after Mindstorm before when the trap went off. Soulja Boy punches Huey, but backs off when Butcher threatens him, instead interrogating Mindstorm and asking him why Vought would allow them to take him down. After hearing the answer, Soulja Boy crushes his head in rage before storming off. Back at the motel, Annie phones Butcher, informing him of the effects Temp V has on the brain after 3 to 5 doses and asks him how many they've had. Butcher lies about how many and promises to tell Huey. Huey arrives back, but despite his experiences with his memories and despite caring for him, he backs out of telling him the truth, and instead tells him they're going to go kill Homelander. Annie gives Kimiko some Compound V, and after Frenchie injects it, she gets her powers back, healing to full strength. As Homelander is trying to fix the fallout of Annie broadcasting his confession, he receives a call from Soulja Boy, who reveals that he gave sperm samples to Vought in 1980, and shortly afterwards Homelander was born, and that Soulja Boy would have retired and let Homelander be Vaught's poster boy, as he is his son. Final episode now, and we see that Homelander has found Ryan after Newman gave him his address. Why Mallory would give Newman the address she and Ryan is staying at is a bit of a mystery, considering Butcher told her all about Newman and she's already shown herself to be allied with Homelander when she publicly took down stand for him. Homelander tells Ryan he's family, and Ryan questions if he hates him for what he did to Stormfront, with Homelander saying he doesn't and that he still loves him, with Ryan hugging him. Ignoring the fact that this should have been developed over the course of the entire season, why the fuck is Ryan doing this? Ryan didn't just mutilate Stormfront, Homelander caused him to accidentally kill his own mother and then tried to kill him when he didn't join him. He hates and fears Homelander so much he has nightmares about him all the time. What the fuck are you doing with this character? With protests outside Vought demanding Maeve be released, Vought now has to move her so the authorities don't find her when they have the search warrant, gassing Maeve unconscious. Since finding out Homelander is his son, Soulja Boy has been dismissive and isolating himself, with the group deciding to get more Temp V and then kill Noir and Homelander together. Maeve is being transported when she wakes up and kills everyone, escaping. Are you fucking kidding me? You gassed her unconscious and then didn't bother to keep her heavily gassed up for the trip? You even see that she's waking up, showing that her current dosage isn't working, yet you decide to slightly turn up the dosage and hope she goes back to bed? Why didn't you put this thing on full blast, you fucking morons? Frenchie uses his contacts to get a dose of nerve gas used on Soulja Boy, and laments the fact that he failed to keep his messed up life away from Janine. Frenchie tells him he is a good man even if he's broken, and he should let Janine see all of him. As Vaught's stock begins to dip and Deep and Ashley try to explain what happened with Maeve, Noir returns, apologising to Homelander and wanting to kill Soulja Boy with him, with Homelander happy to have him back. In a gas station, Butcher knocks Huey out, telling Soulja Boy he ran away. A-Train visits his brother, telling him about his new heart and getting his career back. Nate is annoyed at him for killing Blue Hawk, wanting him to face justice and to go to prison, calling A-Train selfish and telling him to leave. At the gas station, Annie picks Huey up, where he explains that Butcher knocked him out, with Annie getting annoyed he didn't tell Huey about how deadly the Temp V is, while Huey realises he saved his life by not letting him take any more. He says that he always thought his dad was weak about how he acted when his mother left, but realises he was strong for going on and keeping Huey safe and sheltered, and he apologises for the way he's been acting. As they drive, Maeve phones them. So why is Annie here? She wasn't just annoyed about Huey taking the V and joining with Soulja Boy, she explicitly says,
I thought the drugs had fucked you up, Huey, but this is you. This is all you.
You fully acknowledge that this is who Huey is deep down, a completely different person to who you believed he was. Why does she want to be with him when their entire relationship was built on a lie? On top of that, Huey has also just changed. He apparently was deeply insecure about his place with Starlight, and then after going on some sort of speech regarding his dad being weak but actually being strong, all of a sudden he's fine with being useless and his place in their relationship. So he is just reset to his season 1 personality again, and she is just fine with everything he did and wants to be with him even though she said this is who he really is, which she doesn't like. Maeve is in MM's apartment, somehow. Not sure how she knows where MM lives, but apparently she just does. Huey and Annie arrive, and Maeve thanks Annie for using her social influence to mess with Vought. Kimiko has a go at Frenchie for constantly using drugs ever since the events surrounding Nina, and Frenchie believes he is just a subservient dog who does whatever a authority figure tells him to, with Kimiko telling him he isn't defined by his past and he needs to move forward. Maeve finds out about Soulja Boy being Homelander's father, and Annie is worried about the employees in Vought that will be caught in the crossfire. Huey wants to save Butcher as well, believing he is good deep down. With Soulja Boy and Butcher in the office, Butcher ignores Mallory's phone calls and the two have a honest discussion with each other, with Soulja Boy talking about how his dad was emotionally abusive, always calling him a disappointment, and that even becoming the greatest superhero in the world wasn't enough to get his father's approval. They then talk about children, and although Soulja Boy is hesitant about killing Homelander, Butcher quickly points out that Homelander is just a project grown in a lab to replace him. As Noir is preparing, Homelander asks him about what Soulja Boy was like, with Noir telling him he was bad. Homelander reveals that Soulja Boy is his father and asks if Noir knew, which he says yes. Homelander then has a breakdown, ripping Noir's insides out and leaving him to slowly die on the floor, as his animal friends tell him he'll meet Jesus. Don't you worry, I'll be talking about this shit later. At the office, Maeve and the boys arrive to confront Butcher, and after a slightly over-the-top rant and Frenchie refusing to obey Butcher's orders and demanding to be treated better, which is also a character arc that doesn't make sense that I'll talk about later, Huey tries to get Butcher to stop, but Maeve interrupts them, saying Homelander has to die and throwing the nerve gas away, losing their weapon against Soulja Boy. What the fuck? You go out of their way to establish they're using Novichok, the most powerful and deadly group of nerve agents ever created, and you have Maeve, someone deeply traumatized by the amount of innocent people she failed to save, throw this bottle into the crowded streets of New York and just no one points anything out. She might have just killed dozens, if not hundreds of people, and no one is going to say or do anything. This literally never comes up again, by the way. You'd think a Russian nerve gas attack would be a big deal, or that Maeve would have some sort of guilt about the people she just recklessly killed, but nope. Nothing. This nerve agent just fades out of existence once this scene cuts. Soulja Boy returns and the group are forced to go to their safe room, locked inside. In Vought Tower, Deep, Ashley and A-Train are listening to the warning message Annie left them about Soulja Boy. Homelander then arrives and shows them that Noir is dead, and says he hopes that he would have a soup team he could view as family, but he got the 7 instead. He calls the Deep pathetic before telling him a secret order. He humiliates Ashley, telling her to take off her wig, which she wears because she's pulling her hair out due to stress, and hypocritically lectures A-Train over killing another soup. He finishes saying that Noir was better than any of them and he doesn't need or care about them. At the house of the VP candidate, the candidate is drowned in his pool by Deep, and I think the editing here makes things worse than what they are. We just see Deep in Vought Tower, and then we cut to a scene somewhere outside the city and he's just there to kill the candidate. I think this would have been less jarring if there was some other scene in between it. Instead, it seems like the Deep just teleported here after Homelander ordered him to kill him. Also, I assume this guy is gonna have security. He's a highly respected politician who can afford this house. Yet, apparently he doesn't have anything whatsoever, allowing Deep to drown him because no one was there to stop him, and no one views it as a murder because there's no cameras to capture it apparently. After a while, Annie manages to break open the vault, and Frenchie thinks that if they can get him into the Vought labs, they might have the chemicals he needs to make more nerve gas. Wow, the lab you need to go to just so happens to be in the same building as the place everyone else is going to. That's very convenient. The group get ready and Huey sees a vial of Temp V on the floor, pocketing it. In Vought Tower, Soulja Boy, Maeve and Butcher confront Homelander. How did these guys just get here? There's no alarm or anything going off and we don't see any evidence that they've been fighting their way up. So did these guys just really walk through the front door and the security guards just were fine with it? Also, why is Maeve in her costume? Are you telling me this woman, who hates being a soup and is desperate to eliminate Homelander as soon as possible, chose to wander around the tower, find her costume and then get changed instead of just killing him straight away? Homelander reveals that he killed Noir for hiding his heritage from him, and tries to convince Soulja Boy to join him, stating he is his son and introducing him to Ryan, his grandson. But after seeing how pathetically emotional he is, Soulja Boy rejects him, and I really like their dialogue and Soulja Boy's character here, becoming exactly like the thing he hates.
Said it was a disappointment.
You.
I know. You're a fucking disappointment.
I do love that Homelander is possibly turning Soulja Boy to his side and Butcher and Maeve just stand there and let him. Just fucking hit him, shut him up. Stop letting him talk and do the job, because it seems that at several points Soulja Boy is tempted to not kill him, and these two just sit there looking at him, doing nothing but pray he stays on their side. As the group restrain him, Ryan lasers Soulja Boy, and when he goes to kill the both of them, Butcher also lasers him, refusing to allow him to kill Ryan. Homelander then helps him with attacking him, briefly knocking Soulja Boy back. And this whole time Maeve is just stood there not doing anything. She still wants to kill Homelander. She has no beef with Soulja Boy, but instead of restraining Butcher or fighting Homelander while he's distracted, she just stands there. Butcher argues with Soulja Boy, telling him he made a promise to protect Ryan and refuses to allow him to kill him. Okay, but Ryan is basically unconscious at this point. Soulja Boy so far has been a man of his word. Make him promise not to hurt Ryan and then just restrain Homelander again and kill him, taking Ryan away afterwards. What the fuck are you doing? As Ryan passes out, Maeve attacks Homelander, and despite his attempts to get her to fight Soulja Boy, she refuses, continuing to attack him. Homelander then uses his super speed to overwhelm and defeat her. Oh wait, he doesn't do any of that. He just fights her as a normal speed and drags things out for some reason. Soulja Boy ends up winning against Butcher, but Annie and MM show up to save him. Frenchie and Kimiko go to the lab, with her protecting him from Vault security, while Huey evacuates the building. I like the concept of this Kimiko fight scene, having upbeat pop music playing while she slaughters a bunch of goons. But I think it's a bit dumb that this guy just walks straight up to her when he's using a gun, or the fact that Kimiko smashes the guards into different chemicals and vials when she doesn't know how deadly they are or if Frenchie needs them to complete his work. And at one point she spends several seconds hitting someone's corpse, which allows another guard to shoot Frenchie, and Kimiko needs to leave him behind to deliver the nerve agent. Don't know why he would be shooting Frenchie over the woman right next to him that's been slaughtering his friends, but whatever. Also, it's pretty lucky that as soon as Kimiko leaves, no other guards show up to the lab, because if they did, Frenchie would probably be dead. Maeve manages to hurt Homelander, but he overpowers her and destroys one of her eyes. On the stage, Annie, whose primary power involves harnessing electricity and then shooting it at a distance, stands right next to Soulja Boy, allowing him to easily hit her. Butcher manages to destroy his shield, but is quickly overpowered, as is Kimiko when she tries to help. Huey sees the group is overpowered and considers using the V, but instead boosts the amount of power in the studio, allowing Annie to absorb massive amounts of electricity and unleashing it on Soulja Boy, knocking him down. Again, it's a scene I like in concept, but it's just so shit. She absorbs all this electricity to the point she can fly, something we've never seen her do at this point, and all she does is knock him down for a second before he immediately gets back up. No vision problems, no uniform damage, nothing. He's fine. Kimiko and Annie restrain his arms while MM gives him the nerve agent.
You just another racist piece of shit we can't seem to get rid of.
We'll get back to that later. Maeve manages to beat Homelander. Hey, remember this scene?
He doesn't have any weakness. There isn't a weapon on Earth that they haven't thrown at him. They've all failed.
Well, it turns out Maeve could this whole time, so I guess Homelander is just a pussy now, isn't he? I mean, in Season 4, Annie, Kimiko and A-Train could probably just kill him considering he loses a 1v1 with fucking Maeve, a woman who has no special powers except her strength, which isn't as good as Homelander's. Soulja Boy begins to activate his beam, which will apparently destroy the whole building, and no one decides to do anything except look at Maeve. No one is trying to knock him unconscious or position him so his beam will shoot up into the sky and away from any civilians. No, they just stand there. Hey Butcher, you care about Ryan more than getting your revenge, right? Do you want to do anything, or are you just going to let Soulja Boy activate himself? Or you're just going to sit there, never mind. Instead, it's Maeve, who all this time has just wanted to kill Homelander, even if it means she dies in the process, who decides to jump out the window with him so he blows up in midair. Also, we saw before his beam is strong enough to disintegrate and go through people and buildings, yet Maeve's body completely stops it. Which is convenient because if it didn't, it would have continued to carry on and hit the tower, destroying it. As everyone recovers from the fight, it seems as though Homelander is going to attack Butcher, but a scared Ryan asks to leave. As they do so, Butcher begins to bleed and then passes out. After a Vault newsreel celebrates Maeve and blaming the recent attacks on a Russian radicalized Soulja Boy, Butcher is told he has cancer or some sort of tumor that will kill him in about a year. MM shows Janine his grandfather and explains all the stuff that Soups do that he tried to keep secret from her, following Frenchie's advice to be truthful with her. In an apartment, Annie checks on Maeve, who somehow is alive despite being hit by the full force of the beam, losing her powers and then falling 40, 50, 60 floors to the ground. You know, regular human falling height that definitely wouldn't kill you. She is also with Elena for some reason. No explanation for that, she's just cool with all the terrible shit Maeve did now. They then say they're gonna go into hiding somewhere where Homelander and Vought won't be able to find her, and they say their goodbyes. In Ashley's office, Ashley and Anika watch CCTV footage of Maeve surviving and being rescued by the boys, before they delete the footage, allowing Maeve's survival to remain a secret. Not sure why the boys would be out searching for Maeve, considering this was pretty much a death sentence and they needed to get Butcher medical attention, but it's a good job they did, because if they didn't, Vought might have found her, and wouldn't that be inconvenient for the shoehorned in happy ending the writers wanted to give her. Mallory watches Soulja Boy be secured in a secret bunker, Deep begins to binge eat and be depressed after Cassandra makes an expose on him, and Annie decides to bin her Starlight costume, officially severing her ties with Vought and deciding to join the boys. As Butcher arrives, the news shows that Newman is now Singer's vice presidential choice, with Butcher announcing they're gonna kill her. So why is everyone fine with Butcher? Annie hates him, Frenchie is dismissive of him, Kimiko hates him, and MM hates him. What's their explanation for keeping him around and working with him again? Alright, there isn't one. They're all just happy he's back on the team, despite everything that's happened this season. Outside Vought Tower, Homelander meets his fans and introduces Ryan, who has gotten better with his powers. A guy throws rubbish at them and it hits Ryan, causing Homelander to laser him to death. Despite expectations, his fans, including Todd, applaud him for it, stroking his ego further, and we see Ryan slowly smile, embracing his new life and powers as the season ends. You know, I remembered enjoying Season 3 when it came out, and despite the problems people pointed out about it, I thought there's no way it's that bad. In fact, even now when I was doing this review of the third season, I was surprised by how enjoyable the start of it was. Not flawless, there's a few problems, but overall compared to Season 2, it was a firm start. And then it kept going. New stuff is just added on a whim to try and justify some sort of drama throughout the season. Despite his general attitude and even support from one of Stan's speeches, the legend tells Huey that Soulja Boy is a coward and didn't storm Normandy to encourage Huey to call him out and cause tension between the two of them, even though this makes no sense whatsoever and is just played for drama. This is also when the show really tries to hype up the gore and sex as a selling point in the interviews to get people to watch. This is basically when the phrase, "we didn't think we would get away with it" became a meme for this show. Now yes, Herogasm was a more explicit episode, but was there really that much in it that shocked people? We already saw Soups using their powers to get freaky in the first episode of the show, and we heard plenty of times the bizarre, callous and horrifying things that sex with Soups can lead to, so it wasn't really that much of a shock to me, which is a bit of a problem if that shock is what you're hoping will sell people in these interviews. The whole reason why Soulja Boy is so prevalent in this season is because everyone believes that he is the only one that can give them an edge in taking down Homelander. Yet not only could a bunch of Soups like Maeve just beat the shit out of him and kill him, even regular people could be given Temp V and just wipe the floor with him, completely neutering Homelander as a threat. You have two characters that, for one reason or another, wish to gain powers from Compound V and be powerful, with one treated as right for doing so and one treated as wrong. However, at several points throughout the script, the only way the good guys remain victorious is if Huey has the Compound V, because despite what the show thinks, he does what he does out of love for his family as well.
I don't want to be someone who leaves people behind. I want to be someone who saves his family.
If he doesn't have the V, MM would have died in the Russian labs, Annie might have died when she went to Herogasm and Soulja Boy used his beam. He saves both Soulja Boy and Butcher by providing a distraction to Homelander, and he saves Butcher's life by teleporting Mindstorm away before Soulja Boy can kill him. So despite what the story is trying to do, it ends up introducing so many points when Huey is right to have the V that it comes across as a bit hypocritical to shame him while praising Kimiko, ruining the entire toxic masculinity theme they try to set up. Another theme they fucked up is the use of drugs and the intoxication they provide. The Temp V is treated like any other drug, with Butcher, and later Huey, animalistically consuming it whenever necessary. But then the show makes the established point that the Temp V doesn't actually change you as a person. It's not actually addictive unless you're someone with a addictive personality, and instead it just shows the kind of person that you really are.
The V just made me more me.
All the V does is just amp up all that shit that's already inside.
If you wanted to show the horrible effects of drug addiction, then maybe you shouldn't have finished your season with one of the main characters suffering absolutely no withdrawal effects whatsoever and going completely back to their original personality. We've once again got the same issues with security that plagued the last season as well. Vought and Russia are pretty big on the use deadly force to solve problems train, yet at several points there's just nowhere near enough security so the plot devices can be retrieved so the story can continue. Maeve needs to get access to Compound V, there's just no guards stopping her whatsoever. The boys need to get into a highly guarded Russian military base. Well, let's just have most of the base be deserted so there's only a few guards for them to take on and they can find Soulja Boy. Annie needs to get Compound V from the labs. Not only does no one stop her at the door, there's no guards in the labs, and even Homelander knew she was there when she first walked in, and no one did anything. One of the biggest companies on the planet with a private army and godlike beings, and you can just stroll through the front door if the plot needs you to. The show has officially stopped bothering trying to make interesting storylines and characters as criticisms or discussions surrounding politics, and instead the politics are just blatantly shoved in your face. And instead of a wide variety of different political views put under scrutiny for their endorsement of monopolization and capitalism, it's just ripping on right-wing people, specifically Trump supporters. Remember in the first season when the Seven are having a board meeting, and in a very brief throwaway line it's established that A-Train is receiving less revenue than the rest, a criticism that minority groups tend to receive less profit even in companies that preach about diversity and inclusivity. Pretty good bit of criticism that isn't forced down your throat and you might even miss it on a first watch because it's so subtle. Well, what if we threw all that out the window and just made Homelander Trump? Because that's what they did. They don't even really criticize his policies or beliefs, just how he acts. That's their scathing social commentary going forward. Shallow, uninspired, and lazy. Vought in the previous seasons has been very publicly being a left-wing centered company, and on top of that, Newman and Singer are running for the Democratic Party, and so despite Vought and Homelander now being a parody of Trump and his right-wing supporters, Homelander and Vought publicly endorse these people. So you've got Homelander and his supporters supposed to be a parody of the MAGA fans, people who are supposed to be seen as homophobic and racist and sexist, and yet you have them and Homelander endorsing Newman. I don't think I need to explain to you how that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Another thing about this season is that stuff will just happen conveniently all at the same time. So you're telling me that right when Newman is going to try and get her way into the vice president-elect position, one of her old friends happens to visit her right now, causing Huey to discover who she is. The Temp V comes around, giving the boys some sort of substance to help fight against Homelander. They just discover about a possible weapon that killed Soulja Boy that might be able to hurt Homelander, and Cherie ends up stealing from the one person that is able to help them get into Russia and to find their answers. All just highly convenient. The final point before we get to the characters is that most of the story for this season just resets, which means that the main characters are how they are at the start of the season. Homelander is still a menace no one knows how to deal with. Kimiko has her powers, Frenchie is himself again, MM's OCD isn't out of control anymore, Annie's still working with the boys, and Huey is also just there. The only real change is Butcher is now dying, but you already know that he isn't going to die anytime soon, so it's a bit of a hollow plot point. So the characters. Huey has once again been nerfed, but in a different way to Season 2. In Season 2, he wasn't as confident or tactical as he was at the end of Season 1, but he had a good heart and tried to keep the team together. In this season, he's a little more brave and willing to fight, but at the cost of some of his core characteristics being completely thrown out the window for the sake of a toxic masculinity theme that doesn't work. Now, he's always been someone who struggled with Annie being the dominant one, constantly being insecure about her and their relationship. He's also a bit of a dick now for no reason. One of the biggest parts of his character was his kindness. It got to the point where we looked at A-Train, a man that killed his girlfriend and is in the middle of trying to kill him, and he chooses to save his life because he saw how much he was hurting inside. Now when he finally gets a open and honest A-Train telling him how sorry he is and how he's responsible for so much hurt, Huey decides to punch him, looking for an excuse to fight. At one point, Kimiko is dying behind him and he's just so happy he could shove his arm through someone's chest. Again, they stress several times that temp feed doesn't change you, it just shows you who you are underneath. So I guess Huey was always just this callous asshole. Butcher once again is just a constant revolving door of the writers not having the balls to bring him back in line with his Season 1 personality. They'll have him act callous and uncaring, saying that he's willing to do anything to take down Homelander even if it means sacrificing relationships. And then he'll care about the relationships he just sacrificed and go out of his way to prevent something that might stop Homelander because he'll have to do a bad thing. I think the two most obvious points here are with Ryan and Huey. Ryan is the physical manifestation manifestation of his most loved and most hated thing merged together. So I'm fine with this conflict at first because he's trying to do right by Becca. However, as pointed out by several characters, including Becca, Butcher's rage is the most prevalent thing about him, and he looks for any excuse to take it out on the people that wrong him. So he ultimately gives in and ruins his relationship with Ryan because killing Homelander is more important to him. And then at the end he fucks up everything he's been fighting for this whole season because Ryan might get hurt. He constantly uses Huey to help further his goals, only to stop him at the last minute because he reminds him of Lenny. But we've already had this plot point in the last season. In that season he views Huey like Lenny, his canary. So he views Huey like his brother, still chooses to possibly kill him to get to Homelander, and then goes on the exact same arc as season 2 and all of a sudden he's not fine with it anymore, despite the relationship not changing in the slightest. It's just so dumb and hollow. MM is turned into a hypocritical asshole this season purely for drama. At no point was his grandfather being killed by Soulja Boy mentioned. He always said that there was an incident involving Vought and his dad dying trying to fight them is what turned him into the man he is today. But now they've added the Soulja Boy stuff and his grandfather, and it turns into a lecture about how black people are expected to be more polite and forgiving when they deserve justice. Even though Butcher is constantly highlighted as in the wrong, they know that Huey has forgiven A-Train, and Mallory and Frenchie both forgave Lamplighter for what he did, so this messaging falls flat on its face. The simple fact is that Homelander is the most dangerous thing on this planet and needs to be stopped. Yet MM doesn't really care about all of this and would rather Soulja Boy die than complete the mission he's been fighting for nearly a decade at this point. 100% no joke, I think I prefer the scenes of him struggling to be an ex-husband, finally having his family safe but damaging his relationships with them beyond repair, over this surface level dramatic bullshit. Also, please write this man some better fucking dialogue.
It's a historic motherfucking building. You knocked on my doorstep, motherfucker. Fresh ain't shooting us with AK-47s on full auto, motherfucker. Red Dawn, motherfucker. Rocky 4, motherfucker. This ain't Grubhub, motherfucker. You know when white folks get mad, y'all motherfuckers go berserk. I gotta get this motherfucker out of my head. This motherfucking love sausage. Fuck did this motherfucker chuck some out of my herogasm. The motherfucker didn't even flinch. Motherfucker. And now you want to be motherfucking Teresa?
Kimiko has a decent arc this season. She earns to experience some of the more innocent, childish things that society has to offer. Things that she missed out on. But due to her line of work, bad stuff keeps happening around her that seems to corrupt everything that she sees as innocent. She thinks her powers are a curse and is thrilled when they're gone. But she realizes that the powers aren't the problem, she is. And she needs to work on herself while using the powers for the greater good. It's simple and it makes sense, which is far more than what I can say about Frenchie. Throughout this season, he's shown as a submissive dog, someone who does as he's ordered because that's the obedience his father instilled in him. He always needs a master, he always needs someone to dictate his life for him. But that simply isn't true. Yes, he joined the boys, but that's only because he was caught and Mallory wanted to make use of his talents. Before this, he was happily robbing banks as his own independent criminal. After the boys broke up, he spent several years doing his own thing, and when Butcher tries to recruit him, he dismisses Butcher immediately, and in fact threatens to kill him because he owes him money, only stopping thanks to the opportunity to take down Translucent. Literally the main source of conflict between him and MM in the first 2 seasons is Frenchie's decisions to follow his heart instead of following orders, and now you're telling me he cannot resist following orders? Have you seen your own show? Annie is another hypocrite alongside MM. She of all people understands the pain and suffering that Homelander inflicts on people on a daily basis, and yet for some reason she views teaming up with Soulja Boy as bad because he's killed people. She sees Huey for who he is and then just forgets about it and gets back with him in the end. She hates Butcher and what he did to MM, but she's still gonna work for him. And most of her lecturing and speeches are either really dumb or just hypocritical. Mallory is fine. She's mostly just used to help provide intel to the boys and to chastise Butcher. But I do like her interactions with Ryan, viewing him as some sort of grandson and trying to make up for the loss of her own grandchildren by taking care of him. I will say, I do think it's a bit dumb that she never mentioned the possible Soulja Boy killing weapon before, and she might also have another dumb move on her part, but it depends on whether it's character assassination or just a plot hole with the story. Before they move house, Mallory knows Newman is working for Vought and therefore shouldn't trust her. yet Homelander finds them, apparently due to Newman. So either Mallory kept Newman informed, even though that's a pretty stupid decision, or Newman just somehow knows where she is despite moving. However, the show doesn't really establish which one it is, so I'll just say her character remains undamaged for now. I like the scenes with Monique and Janine. Seeing MM at the start of the season, having helped stop Vought from causing damage and saving his family, but at the cost of them never being a proper family again, was a nice bit of character building. I like Monique, a mature woman who can't be with MM for all the hurt he caused her, but still caring about him and wanting him to be alright. As well as Janine getting more and more scared of MM due to the secrets he keeps and the outbursts he has, only to reaffirm her love for him once he becomes more open. It's pretty decent character writing. Cherie and Nina are a bit bland this season. Cherie is now reduced to just a plot device and a damsel in distress, a idiotic one at that because she decides to do something that will get her killed for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And while Nina does help to provide some background on Frenchie, get the plot with Soulja Boy rolling, and to help complete Kimiko's arc, a lot of the stuff she says about Frenchie is just to excuse the stupid character arc he's going on, and she just decides to antagonize the two of them so they have something to do while the main plot's going on, with her disappearing and not bothering them again. Supersonic was alright. He was a pretty chill dude, but besides being Annie's ex-boyfriend and a good guy all around, there wasn't really much done with him. He's just a new character brought in to be sacrificed to show how Homelander is going to torment Annie if she tries to stop him. That's pretty much the main purpose he serves. Maeve was pretty competently written for most of the season. She realised that Homelander wouldn't stop even with the blackmail, and so has been sober, training and helping Butcher so she can help once they're ready to make Homelander vulnerable. And yeah, for most of the season she's pretty enjoyable to watch, especially as she gets to get under Homelander's skin. Then the season finale happens and she throws all that good grace away. You've spent 3 seasons showing how traumatized she is because Homelander and her essentially killed a plane full of people, and then you have her yeet a nerve agent into some random neighborhood where it could have killed dozens, if not hundreds of people. And then after sacrificing herself because everyone around her decided to do their best statue impression, she's just alive and with Elena and she can walk into the sunset. If you wanted her to leave the show on a happy note, maybe that should have been built up instead of just pulling it out of your ass from nowhere. The legend was fine. It would make sense that someone who used to manage these soups would be a good ally to have, having access to all sorts of information and character profiles that could help them with their missions. But I do think the world building suffers a bit, considering you'd think this guy would have been at least mentioned at some point in the show, and Huey, the Vought nerd, doesn't even know who he is. It's like if Marvel fans didn't know who Stan Lee was. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Homelander is going crazy this season, which is writing short term for being made even more incompetent and inept because the writers finally just gave up trying and just wanted him to be Donald Trump. Don't get me wrong, I do like his emotional outbursts and private conversations, but he used to be a smart character. You're telling me the guy who outmaneuvered the US government to get soups in the military didn't realise he might need to learn business terminology to run the business he's taking over? On top of that, he's not really much of a physical threat anymore, is he? Regular people can just take Temp V and beat the shit out of him, and if you get some decent soups together, they could probably just kill him in a fight. So he isn't smart, he's constantly getting flabbergasted by the most benign levels of criticism, and he struggles to fight people he should be dominating. Why am I supposed to think he's a credible threat to anyone when the writers obviously don't? Ashley is pretty much just more of the same. She's a puppet that has to suck up to Homelander, otherwise she might get hurt, both reveling in the power she has over some people, while deep down being disturbed by everything that's going on, to the point she's constantly pulling her hair out until she's nearly bald from stress. She's fine, not much else to really say about her. Stan is also pretty much the same, a calm and controlling individual that does everything he can to keep Vought in the best light possible, having so many contingency plans to the point where even when his career crashes around him and losing the closest thing he has to family, it doesn't really faze him. It's just another setback he can recover from. Pretty consistent with what we've seen from him. Newman continues to be an enjoyable character to watch, someone who has no problems doing whatever is necessary to get what she wants, even if she has to do some moral quandaries about it. Seeing her sneak her way into the Vice President-elect position at the end was quite a surprise, and her threatening Annie this season is one of the biggest highlights for me. The Deep is once again just here, He spends 8 episodes just being a complete fucking idiot, offering basically nothing of substance, and just being a puppet for his wife. The only thing he does is kill the VP-elect, and you're telling me he's the only person Homelander could have contacted to get the job done? Of course not. And by the end, he's basically just in the same position he was during season 1, a weak, pathetic mess who's all alone. Nice to see we've done 2 seasons with him and he's gone absolutely fucking nowhere. Cassandra was pretty good though, being the brains behind Deep before piecing out when the situation just gets too ridiculous for her to help anymore. Wish she could have got a bit more characterization besides she manipulates the Deep for her own purposes, but whatever, she's fine. A-Train is alright. I feel like he spent far too long trying to suck up to Homelander when it was obvious he wasn't respected anymore, and I feel like the redemption arc should have happened a lot sooner. I also think he still should have died. I see no way that he would have received medical attention and a heart replacement considering where he was and what was going on around him. But I do like the family drama that happens with him, and the fact he finally gets his wish to be himself again only to lose everything personal to him in the process. So I guess this isn't the worst writing decision. Todd is designed to be the boys' equivalent of a MAGA supporter. That's it. That's his character. Blue Hawk exists just to parody the All Lives Matter protesters and to give A-Train an excuse to start turning good. That's it with him basically. Ryan is a character I'm conflicted on. On the one hand, he's a kid, and kids are more prone to making emotional and dumb decisions without really thinking of the long-term effects. On the other hand, despite not wanting to be anywhere near Homelander due to him helping to cause him to accidentally kill his mother and confessing to having dreams about Homelander finding and killing him, Ryan just happily goes with him and is completely fine with Homelander being his father now. I get that he needs a parental figure and he's probably hurt from Butcher abandoning him, but Mallory is there and I'm sure she would have educated him on his history and morality, but he just chooses Homelander anyways. On top of that, he's now apparently embracing his evil side as well, which just comes out of nowhere, but it also isn't even really brought up again in the next season, so I genuinely feel like the writers have no idea what to do with him. The Payback group is fine. We don't really get too much info on them, it's mostly their relationship with Soulja Boy that's focused on, but they have a variety of different cool powers and some decent basic characteristics that make them feel like a real team. Speaking of Payback, Noir has to be one of the most pointless characters in this entire show. In all 3 seasons, he mostly just sits around not doing anything, gets in a fight with Kimiko which was pointless because she can't die, kills one terrorist that we had barely any details on, so I don't know if this was impressive or not, gets into a fight with the boys after tracking Butcher, which is pointless because Stan gets blackmailed into standing down anyways, he fails to kill Annie, gets put in a coma, knocks out Maeve and then imprisons her, which she escapes later so it was pointless, runs away to have flashbacks to Soulja Boy, comes back and then dies. The only significant thing he does is something that happens in a flashback, and he's not even the one who defeats Soulja Boy. So yeah, that one episode of character development really made up for the fact he died after doing nothing substantial whatsoever in the present day. They couldn't even make his death a tragic one either. You have a mentally handicapped man dying alone, killed by someone he seemed to care about, with characters he imagined in his subconscious being the only company he has in his dying breaths, and you want to waste it on a joke about Jesus. Really. I get that it's difficult writing for a character that can't talk, even more so for a character that can't talk and has their facial features covered, but you can still do stuff with them. In fact, you did. You showed him being a skilled pianist, a lover of animals, an artist. There's so many different hobbies and character tics you could have given him to flesh him out more. Little things he could do to make his opinion on conversations and issues more apparent. And instead they wait until the ending of this season just to kill him off afterwards. Just a fucking complete waste of a character. And finally, Soulja Boy. Soulja Boy is one of those characters where the writers very clearly wanted to lure you into thinking he's not that bad of a person, only to spring up new information and behaviour to make them turn evil and for you to turn against them. Unfortunately, the writers did such a good job of making Soulja Boy sympathetic and implemented the twist so poorly that I genuinely can't help but be on his side by the end of it. Based on how the main characters treat him and the exposition given to us, Soulja Boy had a massive ego and was a remorseless bully even to the people closest to him, harming innocent people if ordered and having no problems with collateral damage. He also lies and over-exaggerates his accomplishments to make himself seem like a bigger hero and a more righteous individual than he actually is. After he is captured by the Russians and then freed by the boys, he tears his way across the country trying to find and kill his old teammates, even clashing with the other members when they become disturbed by his actions and personality, being put down by the boys at the cost of Maeve seemingly sacrificing herself. Except let's be honest, that's not really what happens in this show, is it? In regards to fighting in World War II, II and the apparent atrocities he committed in the US, Stan Edgar explicitly states he fought during it, and Soulja Boy's greatest desire at the time was to make his dad proud. And what would be a more proud moment in US history than storming the beaches of Normandy? It makes no sense whatsoever for him to not be on the front lines leading the charge. It also makes no sense that he would be involved in actions that would be extremely detrimental to his image and the superhero persona he's given himself, especially assassinating a fucking president. In regards to MM's family, we've seen plenty of times throughout this show that some supes aren't evil in the sense that they go out their way to harm people, but just that they're lazy and will take the easier option. The show seems to imply, and MM outright states in the final episode, that Soulja Boy did what he did because he's a racist who deliberately sent a car into his family home. But it could just be another account of a supe using more force than necessary and not regarding what might happen from it. In fact, he doesn't seem to have any problems associating with black individuals and cultures. Again, Bill Cosby is a evil guy, we know that. But back in the 80s, people had no idea what he was like. So based purely on how everyone perceived him over 40 years ago, Soulja Boy not only had no problem hanging out with him, but he even praises him as an individual, calling him the Dad of America, a term I don't think he would use lightly. He also has no problems doing the rap portion of Rapture by Blondie. For those that need a brief history lesson, rap was not popular in the 70s and 80s, especially not the way it is now. There was certain areas that popularized it and it got some traction, but it wasn't really seen as a highly regarded form of music. Even after Blondie released Rapture in 1981, which was the first time a big music star brought the genre to the general audiences, the genre still wasn't seen as a highly praiseworthy part of the music industry. But despite that, Soulja Boy has no problem singing it. So if Soulja Boy is more than happy to go on TV and sing a unpopular genre of music most commonly associated with African Americans, does that sound racist to you? It doesn't to me. He also seems a lot more open-minded for someone who was born in the early 20th century. He seems more than happy that Mallory is his superior officer in Nicaragua, a rare occurrence back in the day, being more upset about her rejecting his advances than having a problem following her orders. He was one of the people who founded Herogasm, a place where straight, bisexual and gay supes could get their rocks off, despite LGBT issues still being very prevalent in the 50s, and when roaming the streets of New York he seems quite surprised that a gay couple is openly walking around in public, showing bemusement by how far society has come. We then have the idea he was a relentless bully who abused his teammates so badly they turned against him and left him for the Russians. Of course, the problem with this is the main source of this comes from Noir's flashbacks, a man who has a lot of emotional anger and fear clouding his judgment on the matter, and is in fact heavily brain damaged. So it's difficult to know if everything we see is the whole truth or not. We have some official documentation from Vought that teammates tried to get reassigned somewhere else, but Gunpowder himself says that looking back on it, the abuse wasn't actually that bad, comparing it to roughhousing and Soulja Boy's misguided attempts to toughen them up over a desire to actually hurt them. And finally, we have the fact that these supes are also extremely callous individuals that might have done what they did for petty or narcissistic reasons. These people show no remorse for the innocent people they end up killing, and so it's highly possible they just got tired of being bossed around over any actual threat in their lives. After being woken up, after his initial traumatic outburst, he makes no attempt at attacking any of the boys, merely wanting to get away from the facility. We don't hear any news reports about any deaths, and in fact he seems to just sneak around and stay out of the way until he gets home without incident. After arriving home and destroying a building full of people, he seems to have callously walked away, gotten his equipment back, and then gone on to kill Crimson Countess, showing his desire for revenge is more important than the innocent people he just killed. Except he reveals later that he didn't even realise he killed anyone, blacking out for a few minutes and not understanding what he'd done until he saw it on the news later, showing a deep regret and guilt for the innocent people that died because of him. When killing Countess, Annie says that they can't trust Soulja Boy based purely on the fact that he's murdered people. Annie and MM are supposedly the more morally correct individuals in this situation, but so far the only arguments given as to why they're in the right is that Soulja Boy has killed people, something that all of the boys are guilty of, including Annie. After Huey and Butcher tag along with him, he's also more than willing to make a deal with them, even if he's a bit demanding and dismissive at first. He goes to Herogasm, and despite the fact he just wants to go in to get the TNT twins as soon as possible, he does back down and agrees to Huey's idea of scouting ahead first, as this ensures he can go straight to them and reduce the chances of any innocent people getting in the way. After Huey takes too long, he ventures in himself, and when Butcher asks him to leave MM alone, he does so without question. He then says something that surprises everyone.
And whose fault was it? If you tell me, Maybe I'll let you go.
Instead of just beating and torturing them, he instead decides to negotiate with them, offering to spare them if they tell him why they turned on him. It's true they have no way of knowing if he would, but considering he sticks to his word to Butcher throughout this whole season, it seems that making a deal and sticking to it is very important to him. So despite the betrayal and years of torture he went through, Soulja Boy actually seems to be showing them mercy. Soulja Boy has another blackout incident, and again seems confused about the damage done to the building or the people that have been killed. He helps to take down Homelander and later gears up to take on Mindstorm, giving helpful advice to avoid eye contact if they see him. He seems very dismissive of Butcher's coma after he encounters Mindstorm, but everyone was in agreement they would do whatever it takes to kill Payback and Homelander, even if it ends up with people dying. So Soulja Boy is literally just following the example Butcher has given. He even promises to keep going after Homelander once Noir and Mindstorm are taken care of, despite the fact he was only really doing so because Butcher asked him to. Something he realistically doesn't have to do anymore, but he's still going to do it because he promised he would. He has some conflict with Huey over the authenticity of his World War II exploits, something we've already discussed that don't make sense for him to have lied about. He later encounters two people stranded by the side of the road and kills them. It could have been so easy to turn this against him, with them not doing anything out of the ordinary, him murdering them, and later Huey asks and it turns out that Mindstorm didn't even do anything with them and Soulja Boy just murdered them because he was too callous and revenge driven to care that he just killed two innocent people in cold blood. Instead, it turns out that these people are being mind controlled and will continue to try and kill them unless they're killed, showing that Soulja Boy was right and that these deaths are in the hands of Mindstorm, not him. He later punches Huey, which makes sense as Huey not only could have cost him the chance to kill Mindstorm, but put himself in a position to be hypnotized just like Butcher, and then proceeds to interrogate and kill Mindstorm, finding out that Homelander is his son. Despite that, and the fact that Butcher seems to think he has some mental issues due to his experiences, he still chooses to go after Homelander and stick by Butcher, even having a open heart-to-heart with him about his abusive dad. Locking the boys away and bringing Maeve along, Soulja Boy still refuses to join Homelander, despite learning he even has a grandson. After Soulja Boy knocks Ryan out, at this point Butcher and Maeve could just pin Homelander down away from Ryan, allowing Soulja Boy to kill him without Ryan dying. Instead, Butcher turns on him completely, with Soulja Boy pointing out the hypocrisy over expecting him to kill his own son while not allowing any possible harm to come to a kid that isn't even his. Butcher doesn't even try to negotiate for Ryan's safety here either. Soulja Boy hits him in self-defense and that just causes Butcher to throw the deal out the window immediately. And so Soulja Boy fights the boys, and when on the losing foot, he tries one last Hail Mary to ensure that he doesn't end up in the same situation he was back when the Russians captured him, failing after Maeve also betrays him, leading to him being imprisoned in a secret US military base. To sum Soulja Boy up, he sticks to his word throughout the entire season. Most of his less more actions are either shown to be completely justifiable, or are being criticised by unreliable narrators. Despite his mental issues and macho attitude, he's shown to be deeply disturbed by the deaths of innocent people, and he seems extremely easy and approving of most social issues for someone born in 1919. And I'm supposed to think this guy is the villain? And so that concludes my review on Season 3. Season 3 starts off looking a lot better than Season 2 did, and for the most part it seems to actually be trying to go back to the core roots of Season 1, but in the end the plot just keeps getting more and more ridiculous, with the season finale being absolutely atrocious. A lot of the main characters are fucked up in a bad way, the politics and themes are as surface level as you can get and mostly don't correlate with what was actually happening on screen, and by the end of it the main story just seems like a complete waste of everyone's time. And this is the season people think is as good as Season 1?
What a fucking joke.
Thanks for watching, lads and lasses. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing and checking out some of my other videos. Sharing always helps, and if you're feeling really generous, please consider my Patreon or YouTube membership. I also have a Twitter and occasionally I do live streams. But most of all, I just hope you had a great day and hopefully I will see you in the next video.